Guess what? College football is broken, and there are experts who have a plan to fix it. Don't you feel comforted? Don't you feel like finally we're going to get all this together? All this craziness, all this insanity is going to be behind us. Life's going to be good. Yeah, right.
Experts.
Every time an expert says he's got a plan, I say BS. Don't know what the hell it is that you're talking about. This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, a brand new show here on the Fan Upstate. Love being here with you each and every day on this show, on this station. Can't do it without you, the P1s, the Tolos, who are with us each and every day on the Fan Upstate. But before we get you there, before we reveal this plan to fix college football, Gamecock fans, you need to drive out to Oxford. You need to get your boy, because Juice Wells is on one again. Juice Wells is clowning the South Carolina Gamecocks from afar. What's that, a different time zone he's going after the South Carolina Gamecocks from? This, if I was a Gamecock fan, this would make me absolutely livid. And it should if you're a South Carolina Gamecock fan. So Juice Wells reveals the reason why he left South Carolina, and here it is. Maybe. Yes. No. Okay. No, it's not there. Thanks technology for failing us on this one. So Juice Wells.
Let me try on my end, Diesel.
Okay.
I never seen nothing like this. Every day they're going at it. You know, some days Amos to get them, some days Harris to get them. But, you know, I can't wait to get out there and get that too, you know. But them boys, they going at it every day, man. You know, I see them boys getting better every day. So I can't wait to see them boys on Saturday also.
So he's talking about Ole Miss there.
Yeah, he's saying Ole Miss gets after it. South Carolina doesn't win, and I wanted to win. That's what Juice Wells had to say about you. Now, Juice Wells has punked South Carolina now, what, 3-4 times at this point?
That's rough, man.
Yeah.
Let me see.
He came in. He had one great season, and then he fell off the face of the earth for the 2023 season. 2023 Juice Wells, 3 receptions, 37 yards, 1 touchdown, accepted a whole mess of NIL money from you Gamecock fans.
Here he is,
a whole bunch of your money.
Here he is again, Diesel.
But I wanted to be with a quarterback who's actually experienced in the SEC and can actually, you know, control the offense. And also, I want to win, man. You know, I don't like losing. You know, I'm a competitor, but I wanted to be.
That's kind of rough.
Yeah, I wanted to win. I don't like losing. I wanted to be a quarterback who's experienced and who can win in the SEC. Well, who's he talking about? He's talking about Jackson Dart, who last year, 2023, his 3rd season with the Ole Miss program, 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions.
I'll say this. I don't necessarily think that he is taking shots at Lenore Sellers. What I think he's saying is
taking shots at the program.
Yeah, maybe at the program, but Lenore Sellers, you know, I don't know if there's beef there or not, Diesel, but to his point, Lenore Sellers hasn't played an SEC schedule, right?
No, of course not.
So, like, I don't know that I necessarily blame him on going to Ole Miss, but taking shots at the program, you know, he wanted to be a winner, he said, and that is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Ole Miss has coming up. There's a very good chance they start 4-0. Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern to start their schedule. Their schedule doesn't get legitimately tough until week 7 at LSU. Ole Miss has to come to Columbia October 5th. So Gamecock fans, I'm sure you're going to let them have it. I'm sure the Boo Birds are coming out. They're going to go after Juice Wells when he gets announced October 5th. Ole Miss coming back to South Carolina. I don't get Juice Wells' deal right now. Like
think he's salty?
I think he's salty. I think he can't help but open his mouth and talk bleep about South Carolina. I mean, we saw him when he visited with Ole Miss personnel on campus in Columbia. He drove his South Carolina Gamecock branded golf cart to the meeting. He then announced his intention to transfer, and then went back into the building at South Carolina to get a free haircut.
Yeah,
and you guys let him. You guys let him. I mean, Juice Wells, he's taken South Carolina for a ride. If I was a Gamecock fan, I would have a big problem with this.
I want to hear that again.
But I wanted to be with a quarterback who's actually experienced in the SEC and can actually, control the offense. And also, I want to win, man. I don't like losing. I'm a competitor.
But did he say actually control the offense right there?
Quarterback who's actually
right here?
experienced in the SEC and can actually, control the offense.
Who's in the SEC and can actually control the offense? What does he mean by that?
Well, he means that Jackson Dart has experience.
Yeah, but
he is in his sophomore year last year. He threw for over 3,000 yards. He had 23 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I think Jackson Dart is a very good SEC quarterback.
Sure.
And Lenora Sellers doesn't have the experience. So, again, I'm with you. I don't think he's taking a shot necessarily at Lenore's.
Right.
I think he's saying, I just can't win at South Carolina. I don't know that I can win this year at South Carolina. I don't want to waste another year of eligibility, spinning my wheels, trying to figure that out.
A couple of comments on the stream. If I transfer from Vanderbilt to Ohio State and said that I wanted to win, is that a shot at Vandy or just stating a fact? I hear you, Matt Kraft, but, if you watch that video, there is some shots being fired there.
Of course there is.
There are some shots being fired. Could he be telling the truth? Sure, but there are some shots being fired. One Tolo on the text line says, Juice is an a-hole. Competitors don't sell out the majority of the season and make excuses. Screw him. I hope he tears his ACLs. Go Cox. Wow, that's a little rough.
I can't believe he said that after not playing all year for $1 million. Was that the number, JD? Was that the number? Was that his NIL number?
I think it was close to it.
Oh my God. And he had his best season with Spencer Rattler. Yeah, this dude's a punk. And it was a bad move to bring him into the program. I know that at the time you needed bodies, you needed wide receivers. I know that he was a good player, but he doesn't have it between the ears. You know what I'm saying?
South Carolina fans, man, they're pissed with him. They're like Kim Mulkey right now.
I sure am glad you leaving.
They're like Big Kim. We glad you leaving, Juice.
Oh man.
Get out of here.
You are listening to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Thank you so much. However you're listening to us, if you're listening to 97.7 FM in Greenville, we appreciate 97.1 FM in Spartanburg. Shout out to you. If you're listening live on the free Odyssey app or over at thefanupstate.com, that's great. If you're listening after the fact on any one of the streaming platforms that carries our audio, that would be the Odyssey app, that would be Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, however you listen to the show. Thank you so much. If you can, whatever platform you're listening on, if you haven't already, hit subscribe, hit follow, whatever you do.
And the Fan Upstate is now on one of the most popular platforms that we want to invite you to follow us on, and that is TikTok. Follow the Fan Upstate on TikTok. We tweeted out a link from our Twitter account earlier that'll take you right to it. Diesel and I, there's already 2 videos posted on the TikTok, so we invite you.
Growing.
Absolutely. We invite you to follow there as well.
Yep. We are broadcasting live here from the Ingalls Market Studios. You got something to say? Text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan if you want to weigh in on this Juice Wells audio where he said, I needed to go somewhere where I could win. I needed to go somewhere where I could be a competitor. And I wanted to go somewhere that had an experienced quarterback who knows how to run an offense in the SEC. You got something to say about that? You can call us at 844-FAN-PHONE on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. But I teased it off the bat. They got themselves an expert out there. There's an expert. People who deem themselves smarter than we plebs who don't have a clue what it is we want when it comes to college football. We all want it to go back to the way it used to be, not when it was all about the money and all about putting matchups together. No, we want football. We want football to be overcomplicated. So a group, Cole, of influential sports leaders and college presidents have pitched a drastic change to the college football model. And this was reported by The Athletic. So here's the basic tenets, and then we're going to get into this. We can parse this out piece by piece. No more conferences as we currently know them. All conferences gone. Sorry, Gamecock fans. Sorry, Vol fans. You're going to have to figure out something else to chant. You can't chant SEC, SEC, SEC when Alabama wins another title. You can't do that anymore. So no more conferences as we know them. Playoff berths are going to be decided solely on the field, which I really like this tenet here. So there will be no contractual placement of schools into the tournament based on what conference they're in. There will be promotion and relegation, which I think is very interesting. Players will be paid directly by the schools, and there will be a structure to manage NIL and the transfer portal. So just off the bat, before we get deep into the weeds into what some of this stuff means, Cole, what you've just heard, how do you feel about it? Pro, con?
Sounds great, but the con would be I just don't think it will happen.
Right. There's always
TV money has a lot to do with it too.
Anytime we talk about like what changes would you make, what would you do, everybody just wants to make a unilateral decision. Like I'm going to do this and everything's going to be fine. Well, that's fine. That's good that you have your idea. But like, what can you actually achieve? What can you negotiate? Where can you end up? That's a good starting point, but where can you end up? So this group is called College Sports Tomorrow, CST for short. They told The Athletic their plan to create a super league in college football to quote unquote, these are their words, save college football. They want to save college. They want to do the altruistic thing and save it for us. So here is their proposed structure. There would be 10 team divisions consisting of the top 70 programs in the sport. How they're going to determine that, I'm not exactly sure. They're going to go after 1 year snapshot. Are they going to go after a 10-year window of averages where you can say, okay, over the last decade, here's how good these programs would be. There would be an 8th division of teams that are being promoted up and down in a second tier. That second tier would be the remaining 50 FBS programs. There's 133 FBS programs right now. So sorry to 3 of them. You're going to have to go back down to the FCS or something, I guess. But those 50 teams would be fighting to get into and stay into this magical 8th division. The 70 would never be at risk of relegation. So it's okay, Kentucky, if you slide and you fall and you're down for the next 50 years of football. You will never, ever, ever, ever drop out of one of these 10-team divisions because you're protected in that way, which is sadly something they're going to have to give up if they want to even have a prayer of ever making this structure happen. Like these schools are going to need assurances, right? You can never, ever relegate us. So they could never be relegated down into the second tier. There would be a 16-team playoff with 8 division winners and 8 wild cards using a win and loss structure. So results on the field are going to matter again. So now that we've heard a little more details about this, 8 divisions of 10 teams each, 70 of those programs protected, can never be relegated. The other 50 programs are going to be fighting for that 8th 10-team division. Now, what are you thinking?
I think it would bring an interesting parity in terms of, I don't want to say a level playing field, but I'm for it. But my question is, what determines how the TV networks can allow this to happen?
Well, so here's I'm going to give you some more insights here. Maybe, peel back some layers of this onion here. Okay. So this group, CST, College Sports Tomorrow, is a 20-person group, which includes, but is not limited to, obviously, the Chancellor of Syracuse University, Ken Severud, West Virginia's President, Gordon G., and NFL top executive Brian Rolop, who works directly under Roger Goodell. Here's where all this is starting to come into focus, right? The idea is to make this NFL light, which college football already is. If anybody's got a problem, if that's the sticking point, it already is NFL light. Let's not pretend like it's not. They would attempt to create a bundled media rights deal similar to the NFL. Universities would own a percentage of the league, so they would make money directly from the league. Revenue distribution would not be evenly split, but unevenly split based on each school's brand value. and there would be a single entity with which the league could negotiate when it comes to NIL, the transfer portal, and salary structures, which basically means collective bargaining. To this point, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, and Tony Petitti, commissioner of the Big Ten, have not picked up the phone. They are not fielding the calls.
Yeah.
They are not talking to CST. You know why? Because, well, those two feel like they are the ones in control right now. And they are. Right now, them and the Fox executives and the ESPN executives and whoever else has their fingers in this pie, they're the ones in control. So if this structure happened, either number one, they'd have to have a seat at the table and be part of that 20-man team, CST, or they would have to relinquish and say, okay, I'm done. You guys, here you go. Fly, fly, baby birds.
Madcraft has an interesting point. He says, how would they get that many schools to agree?
Well, the answer is universities own a percentage of the league. So as the league makes more money, the universities make more money. Basically the attempt here is to unify the sport. Because what do we have now? We have 9 conferences.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's commissioner or Jack Swarbrick. We have the FCS leagues. We have whatever the Pac-2 are going to do. Everybody's out for themselves.
How would they decide what school makes what percentage of money, though, based on the money that they bring in?
Value.
Okay.
How exactly you determine that, I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
But if we see it all the time, these metrics of what schools have the most social media following or the most engaged social media following across all of their social media platforms. And there's 100 other data points that you could put in here for each school.
Right.
To somehow determine what their media rights brand value is. So in this situation, the big schools would still make the most because Alabama's brand is worth more than McNeese State's brand.
Yeah,
right?
a lot more.
And across the board. So the universities would own a piece of this. Distribution would be unevenly split so that the biggest brands make the most money. There would be incentives for making the 8th division.
Yeah.
Being in that division, you probably get a big chunk of money for a couple of years, however they figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That would really interest me as a fan of a group of 5 school.
I don't hate it. I just don't know, if that group has enough power. Now, I will say this. I think teams and universities would be on board to get rid of the NCAA. If they could figure out a way that the NCAA is gone, because I don't know. I don't want to say
the NCAA may need to do something to get onto this 20-man board. Now, the NCAA, this would be for football only. So the NCAA would still control everything else for every other sport, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you could get personnel from the NCAA onto this governing body to at least have their voice be heard.
Sure.
So this is really interesting. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack in this, and we're going to get to this throughout the show today. But if you've got thoughts on this CST proposal, as I've just laid it out, we would love to hear them, and we're going to get to them and read them throughout the show. Remember, if you text in on topic, you always get your text read immediately. If you text in off topic, we wait, and we get to you later on in the show.
He's on Twitter at Diesel on Radio. If you are on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, we encourage you to give us a follow to stay up to date on news happening while we're not on the air. He's at Diesel on Radio. I am at The Cole Bryson. That's where you can find us on Twitter. Coming up next, I do have a question. I have not played a video game and owned a video game console in probably 8+ years, but we're a month away from NCAA EA Sports dropping. There are some really interesting teasers that we have heard from the Kirk Herbstreits of the world. I want to know if this video game that will drop in 1 month for the first time in a long time when it comes to college football, will this be the video game that gets you back, that piques your interest when it comes to playing video games? I think this one could be one for the decades, Diesel. We'll talk about it next, right here on the Fan Upstate. I have not played and owned a video game console in a really long time. And a part of the reason that I haven't is because the college football NCAA video game got banned, if you will. No more. It's done. They can't be on a video game if they can't be paid, right? Well, fast forward 15 or so years. How long? 10 years later, however long it's been, way too freaking long is all I know. And the more and more I hear about this new college football video game, the more intrigued I am. Not only with the game itself, not only with the graphics, but with the broadcasting side of it. We are obviously, Diesel and I, in the broadcast industry, being host of the radio show. So I do think it's very fascinating to hear all these teasers that keep dropping. And I want to start with this one. This one was from EA Sports on Twitter. And this one, man, this one's the one that got my blood boiling. This one's the one that made me think, like, man, it may be time for me to have to go buy a console again. I don't own one right now. So Cole, in a month from now, may be having to go buy a console after hearing this.
Got something special for y'all. A little update for our fans from the Big House to the Bayou, from Carolina to California. Yeah, it's about college football. We know you love it. Us too. Rivalries, comebacks, the traditions and superstitions built by generations. There's nothing like it. Turns out, we've been building too. So let's address the big owl in the room. Yeah, we've seen the posts, the predictions, the doubts. We get it. It's been a minute. Let's just say this ain't the only jersey we've been working on. The game this sport deserves. Because pretty soon, this place will be full again. Until then, cue the crowd noise.
I don't know why, but that absolutely got me fired up. It got me juiced. Obviously, watching the video, which you can do on Twitter, it's even better. I'll retweet it right now.
So 2013 was the last
college
football game.
So 11 years.
I know. Was that on PS3? Would that have been on PS3? I had
Probably so.
I had a PS3, but I didn't have any of the college football games on PS3.
I think it was Xbox too.
I had a PS2. I know for a fact the last college football game I ever bought was college football 2007. Reggie Bush was on the cover.
Good year.
Yeah, Reggie Bush was
good
on the cover.
year.
I loved playing that game. I loved it. I loved it because it wasn't as super involved as Madden.
Sure.
Like, I've tried to pick up Madden over the years, a little bit here and there, and it is complex.
It's not the same.
Very complex. It's not the same.
It's not, man.
I don't have as big a connection to the NFL as I do to college football.
Sure.
I would be willing to learn those complexities for a college football game. Texture says, get a PS5 and let's start an online dynasty. That's
I like it.
Trey Davis, on the stream. Well, I think you and I could probably both go down to Hendrix's office after the show and request a bonus so that we can afford a PS5
for sure in here
and the game.
And we'll do it in here, live stream it.
Yeah, you know what?
During the show.
Right.
I like the idea, Trey. I really do. So the more
those things are expensive, Trey. You can we borrow about $250 for this?
How much are they?
I don't know.
PS5? Let us know, Trey. Trey probably knows. The more digging I've done, the more excited. So I teased coming into the
$500.
Wow, that's more than I thought.
Yeah, you can get them between $450 and $600, probably, like depending on the size of the hard drive inside.
Gotcha. So I teased this coming into the segment. I have not played video games in a long, long time, and I do think that number one, it's because I don't have a lot of time, just free time sitting around to play video games. However, I do predict, Diesel, that I will now foot the bill of whatever a PS5 or Xbox, whatever you have to buy to get this game in the best format. I don't even know which one's better anymore. but I do think that this will be what does it for me, especially after hearing what Kirk Herbstreit had to say.
There's a variety of voices. In the past, there's always just the same 2 or 3 people call every game. Now I think there's going to be different broadcast booths for different types of games that you play in. So that'll be kind of a different wrinkle. But yeah, I think it comes out in July. But yeah, it's work that we do, usually 2 or 3 hours at a time, and I've got a bunch still to go.
So not only like in the old NCAA video game, it was the same guys, and you heard this
Nessler and Herbstreit in 2007,
and you heard the same phrases over and over and over, and it was kind of monotonous. Like you just kept hearing the same touchdown call, the same punt block call, whatever it was. The fact now that we may get different booths, different broadcast teams.
Texter asks, can you use some of your show budget to rent a PS5? Texter, what's a show budget?
And what's a rent a PS5? You can rent a PS5?
Well, yeah. What are these 2 words you say in show bud?
Yeah, we don't have that.
I don't know what that is, Texter. We don't have a show budget.
Another texter says, I have a disc copy of 2014. So I'll say this. I cannot wait for this. I cannot wait for it to come out. Whenever it does, I'll probably be the one that has a console and the video game. I'm sure the video game will be what, 100 plus?
No, I think PS5 games are around $70.
$70. So
still a lot.
So here's
$70 still a lot.
Yeah, it is. So here's the question. For someone like me who doesn't have a console and hasn't played video games in a really long time, in order for us to get in on this, we're going to have to drop $575 at least. Does the console come with a controller?
Probably one.
So you're going to have to spend another 50 to 70.
$100.
Yeah. So we're talking about $700
now
out the door.
I'm with it. I'm really interested in what Kirk said there with different booths for different games.
I love that.
Conferences. I'm excited to see just how much more intricate the stadiums look, to see how much more intricate all of the production around the games, because they would flash to the same clip of the same group of cheerleaders, just with a different color uniform on, depending on what school they were on. Sometimes you would see the same stadiums for different schools because they just didn't generate a stadium for every school. I'm really excited about that because it's incredible how detailed video games have gotten. I remember, I think the last video game that I spent my own money on was GTA 5, and there's for PS3, and they're still dropping expansion packs for that game, and that's been a decade or more. I always loved how intricate they can make all the radio stations on those games. Depending on where you were on the map, the station may get fuzzy. Like you're in the city, you got the liberal talk station. You get out in the country, there's a conservative talk station.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with all of that with this game, because the processing power is going to be so much better. The ability to save all of these phrases is so much better.
We're supposed to get a major teaser in May, and then the actual game is supposed to launch on July the 12th. The July the 12th this year is on a Friday. The only reason I know that's because my birthday is the 11th, and it's on a Thursday. So the day after my birthday, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll gift myself a PS5 and the controller and the game and whatever else you have to buy, right? People buy headsets nowadays too.
I'm surprised you don't have to buy season tickets to your favorite school.
Do you have to have a headset too, Diesel?
No, you don't have to.
In order to play online, though?
If you play online.
So there's another $100.
It can be. I mean, you can use, like I used to always just use a regular set of headphones with a
mic?
Mic on the cord. Yeah, you can use that.
So I'm gonna be down at least $600, maybe $700 when this thing comes out.
I mean, if you don't want like a 12-year-old from Idaho calling you a B word on the stream, then yeah, you're gonna need a nice headset.
I certainly don't want that. Certainly don't want that. Trey says use your tax refund to get it. Billy D, Trey, I have to pay taxes. I can't do that. Billy D says the disc copies used to sell for a nice price because it was considered rare. What disc copy?
You're talking about like the online version, the downloadable version versus the disc?
So it's interesting you bring that up because the last time that I've played video games, the last time that I owned a console, there was no online. Like nowadays, from what I understand, you can download a game online. You don't have to have a physical disc, right?
Correct.
Shows how out of touch I am.
Hours and hours and hours to download these games. And what if your console dies and you don't have the game anymore?
So can you still? Again, this is I'm not kidding. I'm being serious. This is how long it's been since I played video games. Can you still buy disc?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Because I one time
We sound like two old dudes right now.
Well, I don't play them.
I don't either. I got
Do you have a console?
No, I don't.
Really?
I still have my PS3 because occasionally I need to play a Blu-ray disc, and it's got a Blu-ray player. And otherwise, I wouldn't even have a Blu-ray player anymore.
We do sound pitiful.
Yeah.
But I promise, I
want to know where you guys find the time.
That's
to play
right.
Video games, because I genuinely don't have it. What do? Ignore your families so that you can play video games?
No, that's what I'm saying. I just I know I sound ridiculous. A couple of texts. One Tolo says Costco sometimes has a good deal on PS5s. I appreciate that. Another texter, the PS5 controllers have a built-in mic. It's not great, but it'll work. And the digital no disc version of PS5 is a little cheaper. So there's a digital version of a PS5 that you can't insert a disc
it's just
into.
a streaming console. Not a streaming console.
Sure. It's online.
You have to download the disc. You have to download the game online and not put a disc in it at all.
Billy D says the 2014 edition, they made it where you could not download it anymore after the lawsuit. I didn't know that. Thank you, Billy D. That's good information. Listen, it's been that long. When did you say the last game, NCAA? 13?
13.
So it's been 11 years since I have owned a console, because I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I didn't really get in. I love the NFL. I just can't really get into the NFL video game as much as I can the college game. But I do believe that this game is going to be the one that makes me foot the bill. I hate to say it, but it's going to happen.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know that this will do it for me.
You don't think so?
No, I don't know.
What if I get it and tell you about
I'll
it?
come over. Can I come over and play?
Sure, and I'll bring it here. I'll bring it right there. We have a giant TV behind you.
Nice.
Are we allowed to do play-by-play in color of the video game while we're on the air?
You know what we'll do? We'll just roll my mini fridge in here.
That's great.
And then, 6 packs of soda in there. And
is that acceptable? Will we get? Will we still have a job if we do that? Because it sounds fun.
Acceptable if you get caught. That's the thing. It's only bad if you get caught.
So let us know what you think about this. What will do it for you? I mean, that's a lot of money that I'm going to have to foot because I don't have a console or a controller or a headset or a mini fridge or any. I'm going to have to buy a mini fridge too, Diesel, right?
Can we get the dorm one that's got the microwave attached to the top?
Madcraft asked, did the last edition have Boise State on the cover? Oh, man. If it did, that would be brutal. It certainly won't. This one certainly won't have Archie Manning on it since he's goody two shoes.
Good, yeah.
I hate that, man. Like, not to go down a rabbit trail here, Diesel, but I am that infuriates me.
The 2013 cover had Texas and Baylor players.
Oh my word!
That was the 2013 cover.
That's unbelievable. I think that Archie Manning's the only player that we've heard about that's not.
What a loser thing.
He is a loser. That is a loser.
Just accept your $500 and shut up.
I completely agree. You think if I had a guess, Diesel,
virtue signaling.
I would guess.
I don't feel like I'm good enough. I feel like I haven't earned this yet.
I wonder if his parents, though, like if his family made that decision for him. It wouldn't surprise me.
Be your own mate. You're in college.
No, I agree.
You're
and it's a bad look. Like what does it? It doesn't distract you from anything. That's what he's always distraction. I would love to be able to play with Archie Manning, but now I can't because you're a loser. And I'm not going to ever play you on NCAA 2025. Loser. I cannot wait though.
NCAA 14 had some guy from Michigan on it. Says Texter. Was there a 4? I thought there wasn't a 14. I thought it was 13 was the last one.
Well, 13s would have been year 14. So,
okay.
So they always do it a year advance. So if it came out in 13, it would have been NCAA 14.
Yeah, but it says NCAA 13 on the cover. Anyway.
Does it? Denard Robinson from Michigan. I still have an Xbox 360 copy. Man, that might be worth something. Old.
It's worth something right now. If you want to get something for it, you better get something for it right now. Once this game starts pumping back out, it's going to be worth nothing.
I'll tell you, as bad as those graphics are, it is still kind of fun. It's still fun.
It's still fun. Like, what's the oldest console that you can go back to like before it starts hurting your eyes? Like, I can't.
Eesh.
Like PS2 was tough.
It's tough.
If you go back and
that's the last one I had.
Go back and play a PS2 game, the graphics were bad. Like
They were.
once you got into PS3, graphics got pretty decent, it's like they were trying too hard to pump out good graphics on a console that couldn't do it. Like you go back to PS1, even past that, it's like side scrollers, and they looked good, right?
What was the
Mortal Kombat looked good because it was just side to side. You didn't have to do all these 3D renderings.
What was the handheld PlayStation console?
PSP.
I had one of those. Did you have one?
No, I didn't have PSP. I had
Really?
a Sega Game Gear.
Oh, you're old.
Yeah. Before that, I never had a Game Gear.
PSP. That's what it was.
PSP.
I forgot about it, man. And the disc that you put in them were like, they were
The mini
really,
discs,
yeah. That's crazy, man. All right, I can't wait. We'll see if it happens though.
Yep. When we come back, I got a wild story for you. We're gonna go off the rails here. No sports in this one. A wild story that involves international travel, people being stranded, and a couple of South Carolinians. That's next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstates. Cole, have you ever taken a cruise, or would you take a cruise?
I've never been on one, but I'm not opposed to it. Just never have.
I am, number one, terrified of cruises. Number two, never in a million years would I squeeze into that sardine can that are like Carnival cruises. Everybody that I've ever talked to thought, oh, a cruise, great idea. Then they went on one. They got back. They said, that sucked.
So you refuse to?
I refuse to go
Really?
on a cruise. I genuinely do.
What if your wife asked you to go?
Depends on where the cruise is.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Where you going to?
Yeah. Like I don't want to do, I have no interest in like a Caribbean cruise on a Carnival cruise line because everyone that I've ever spoken to has just told me how much it sucked.
I want to try it one time
They're like,
and then I'll be good.
Sneak in your booze in your shoes. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. If you want to have a good time and not spend a ton of money, you gotta sneak stuff in. And I'm like nothing about that sounds fun. You know, it sounds like squeezing into a college dorm room. You, your wife, a couple of kids, and like never want to go back to your. Everybody's like, oh, I never went back to my room because I was like on a boat. Why would I go back to the room? I just want to sleep there.
I don't think a lot of people spend time in the room.
The room sucks.
They do, from what I've been told. Yeah.
So, and like there's way too many people. And then something like this could happen to you. This sounds like a joke. And I'm not joking here. This is Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I'm Diesel. He's Cole Bryson. We are live, by the way, across multiple platforms on the video stream. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter on mine and Cole's at Diesel on Radio, at the Cole Bryson. We are on the Fan Upstate's Twitter. We are on the Fan Upstate's Facebook page.
Let's go, man.
Loving the 65 of you who are in there watching.
We're everywhere.
But it sounds like a joke here. 2 South Carolinians, a pregnant woman, and an Australian were left on a desert island. It sounds like the setup, the premise to a bad like knock-knock joke or something, right?
Kinda
that's exactly what happened to 2 South Carolinians, just like the most white bread, nicest looking people you could possibly think of. Jill and Jay Campbell got stranded in, I'm not going to say this right, Sao Tome and Principe, which is an island off the west coast of Africa, after their cruise line just sailed off without them. Just sailed off, left them there. There was a pregnant lady, an Australian, and a couple other people there too. They had no money because all their money was back on the boat. They had no belongings because they were all back on the boat. And they had been taken out by a tour guide. Like this was a thing. This was a real thing. So they went out on this tour. They did the island, saw what there was to see. Apparently they missed the all aboard. They missed the all aboard from their Norwegian cruise line. And despite a laundry list of attempts to get a hold of the captain, they wouldn't let him back on the boat. This captain was being a total jerk. Total jerk. They were calling like the emergency line for the Norwegian cruise line. I get satellite phones or whatever. Do they even need satellites? Like the iPhones work anywhere in the world now?
I think so.
So they're calling. They're like, we can't. We're like the boat's leaving. What do we do? What do we do? And they're like, yeah, you need to email the captain. Like we've done that. Nobody's answering emails.
This sounds like a TV show.
Yeah, it sounds fake. It sounds like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm or something, right?
One passenger had a heart condition. Yep. Another one's paraplegic. The other one was pregnant.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, it does.
It sounds like a Mad Lib. And I want to know from you, all of you listening, have you ever had a vacation go terribly wrong? Like something really bad happened on your vacation. I don't know that anybody in the upstate can top anything like this at all. Because this is about as bad as it gets. Like you fly from South Carolina all the way to South Africa.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You get on a cruise ship and you're going to cruise up the west coast of Africa and you're going to end up in Spain. And then you get stranded in a foreign country on an island without any money, without any belongings. You have no clothes. You got no nothing.
So
you don't have your phone charger. None of that. You know, over there, they don't have the standard plug like we have.
Right.
So Madcraft says, sounds like a Knives Out murder mystery.
Diesel, man, I just don't know that I feel terribly bad for them. Like, they were late. Like, do you not hear the
tour guide? They hired a tour guide.
You think it was a tour guide that was the reason they were late?
Tour guide. Yeah, all these people were on the cruise. All 7 of them were on the cruise. And they hired a tour guide. A couple of hours would go out, you know, like I've never been on a cruise, but I've been to the Caribbean where there were cruise ships coming in, and they were saying like, yeah, they dock, then you have like 4 hours to go walk around, enjoy the local sights and sounds and foods, and then you got to get back on the boat. But every attempt they made, they hired a tour guide, and every attempt they made to call them and say, yo, we're here, let us on. They're like, nah, bro.
That would stink.
That'd be awful.
I have one that I'll share in a minute, but it's bad, but it's not that bad. Quickly, let's go to the phones, 844-326-3663, where you can share your worst vacation story. Dewey, go ahead.
Yes, I was on a Boy Scout camping trip one time, and it rained on me, and I was left naked. Yeah, I was naked with no clothes because they took my clothes. Yeah, I pooped on myself.
God. Shane Beamer forever,
Dewey.
right, Dewey?
Yes, now turn you off, now leave you off. Oh!
He's got the definition
Thank
of
you,
Tolo
Dewey.
figured out, don't he?
Thank you, Dewey. JJ
God.
said Dewey, LOL.
So
he
many
has
names.
So many names.
I
don't know. Yeah.
I never can take him serious. I can never take him serious. I will share this one, Diesel. 2001, if you ever go on Google or YouTube and type in 2001 Myrtle Beach tornado, it was the worst tornado to ever come through Myrtle Beach, even to date. I remember, I was young, but I remember having to lay under a car in the parking garage and seeing the storm come our way on vacation in Myrtle Beach. Walking out, I don't remember how long the whole thing took. I was really young. Walk out of the parking garage, the hotel next to us. I was young, so this was like really, really tragic in my small brain, But the entire side of the hotel that I was looking at, there was no side. You could see furniture, you could see TVs. I mean, the entire side was gone. So it was a really bad tornado. And if you type it in on Google or YouTube, you can see it was awful. I mean, it came down the beach. It touched, and it was pretty scary. And I don't know where that compares though. Like I didn't get stranded in Africa, so I guess since I survived, it was okay.
Texter says, I'm with Diesel. Cruises are sketch. 2,500 gluttonous non-swimmers on a boat. Another texter says, most important thing on a cruise, do not miss the all aboard. The cruise ship will not wait for you.
Does it make a big sound? I have never been on a cruise. Yeah.
No horn.
I think it does.
It says you are responsible to fly to the next port. Really? I didn't know
my
that.
word.
I didn't know that.
That's
let's see
brutal.
here. Need to be on a cruise ship sponsored tour, not your own tour. Otherwise, they will leave you. And they tell you this. I want to go on one of those like heavy metal cruises where it's like
they have those?
30 bands that come together. Yeah, it's like Ozfest, Mayhem Fest, all those things just on a boat. I
like
really
that?
want to do those. Oh, heck yeah, I want to do one of those.
Hey, Diesel, it's time. I think that's the sound right there. When you hear that,
It's time to go.
your butt better get on that boat.
Well, again, it's not their fault. It was the tour guide who didn't have them back to the boat in time.
He didn't have him in the right place.
And they were trying to hail the captain of the boat. Like, I understand the policy.
Yeah.
I understand having the policy, because if you don't have the policy, people will be like, well, I can be an hour and a half late to the boat. They're not going to leave me. I understand the policy. But it's just like such a jerk move when they were there. The boat hadn't even left yet. And they were like, nah, we're not lowering the plank.
I think I would have had to give the tour guide a deuces and pieced out a little early on that one.
Texter said, I've made it to our vacation spot to only realize we left the suitcases at home.
Oh,
no.
Oh, I have heard people say they went to their vacation spot like their rental house and left the key. But I guess you could always, break in or something if you had to. But that'd still be rough. Keep it up, texters. Tolos, you're doing a great job getting your thoughts in on the stream or the text line 71307. Start your message with fan. That was some really good conversation, and we may come back to that. We may come back to that this show or tomorrow. All right, coming up next, something that we were going to do yesterday, we didn't get around to it because we were so bogged down with topics as we are today, but we are going to get to this today. The Final Four teams in the men's and the women's. We power rank them. Well, that seems normal. However, what's not normal, what you want to stick around for, is where Diesel has South Carolina ranked in these power rankings. Next on the Fan Upstate. So Diesel had to make a run during the commercial break. It wasn't a potty break. He had to go collect something for. That's right. He had to collect something. Evidently, coming up on Monday, we're having another solar eclipse. It doesn't feel like partial. I'm sorry. It doesn't feel like that long ago for me since we had one. But apparently we're having another one. I guess they decided it's time to have another one. So we're going to have another one. Well, we were given glasses. The company gave us glasses, all the employees, right?
Very generous, you know.
So
Next will be a pizza party.
My question is, these glasses, number one, are they effective? And number two, how long could we do the program, do the show, wire to wire, wearing these?
I'm going to tell you, you guys obviously watching on the stream can't see this, but there's track lighting over Cole's head pointed this way towards me. And I can just barely make out the lights in the track light. Now, if I take these off, it's not fun to stare right at the lights.
But you can't.
Because they're bright. You know, we're not Donald Trump here. We're not staring directly
at
lights, solar eclipses.
The lights. Turn off the lights.
Yeah, you can see them. These are legit, dude. Like, I mean, they're
dark.
They are very, very dark.
They're not what you get when you go have your eyes dilated. But you know what, though?
Yeah.
I can feel like I'm having my own solar eclipse without the solar eclipse with these glasses.
Yeah, but when the solar eclipse does happen, you're really going to want those.
Even inside, you think?
Yeah. No, not inside.
So just if you're
those windows are tinted. Windows?
Windows. You said it, not me. You said it, not me.
I did say windows. them's windows is tinting.
You said it this time. They usually talk about my accent, but Diesel said windows.
Them windows.
So if you're outside looking at it, I guess that's when you need the glasses.
Oh yeah, it's like an 81% eclipse. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah,
I remember the last one. That was awesome.
Where were you at?
I was right here in the parking lot.
Oh, you were here?
Yeah. So in case you don't know, there is a partial solar eclipse going to come over our heads Monday. We're expected to see an 82% eclipse. We are not completely in the path of totality, so we'll get an 82% eclipse. It'll start around 1:50 on Monday afternoon, PM, obviously. Otherwise, it'd be a lunar eclipse. And then it'll go until about 4:30 is when it'll be completely like back to normal.
So I have a question. Not to throw a wrench in this thing and you know, dampen everyone's party. But what happens if it's cloudy?
Then you get nothing. I mean,
it's still going to be dark, but you just can't see
it'll still be dark. It'll probably be darker if it's cloudy.
For sure.
Like you'll have the clouds.
But the whole point of the glasses is so you can look up at the sun and see it like in a cool way, I think.
Yeah, but there's some among us whose eyes are so strong he doesn't even need the glasses. I'm good. My eyes strongest eyes anyone's ever seen. I can look directly at the sun. Doesn't affect me at all.
Are we going to be able to see the? So right now it's 4:00 and I can't see the sun from where we're sitting. So I don't know that we'll be able to see the sun directly.
We may have to run out during commercial breaks.
Yeah, do a live remote from the parking lot.
That'd be awesome.
So I do think it's interesting. Like I think the glasses are also for safety. I think that
it's not good. It's not good to look directly at the sun with your bare eyes. That
makes sense.
Really stupid. And I don't know anyone who's dumb enough to actually do that.
No, I don't think I would ever do that. I'm just thinking, like, when I put these glasses on, it is completely dark. I mean, nothing. So anyways, that's Monday. If we make it to Monday, solar eclipse, not a lunar eclipse, solar eclipse. And they did Madcraft. I'm glad you said that because I was about
total eclipse of the heart.
Oh,
the total eclipse of the heart.
I'm glad Madcraft brought this up because I was about to say that. I don't know what's Greenville County or Spartanburg County. They canceled schools. I believe I've seen that.
Seriously?
Yeah. No.
Seriously? Oh,
yeah.
Come on.
I've seen it. Madcraft says they don't want the kids when they get dismissed looking at it, being distracted, driving. I don't know.
Tell the kid what? So now the parents are going to look at it while they're driving their kids around?
Sure. While they're on the way home.
That's smart. don't you just keep them in school and say, all right, here's an hour recess period. We're
Sure.
all going outside.
Here's some glasses.
Get out of here. This is so stupid.
No school. I don't even know if when I was in school we even had a solar clip. We weren't fortunate back then.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's a modern invention.
Oh, they
didn't
just
have
invent-
them. Yeah, we didn't have them when I was a kid either.
Thanks God.
Yeah.
God. Any excuse to get out of school, I would have taken it.
Yeah, like, this is turning into a back in my day segment, but like we didn't get out of school unless there was like a foot of snow. And this is in North Carolina where like
Oh yeah, it was
people
much
freak
different.
out over a flake.
Sure.
This was the foothills of the mountains of North Carolina. People had 4-wheel drive, everybody's fine.
Right.
But
all right,
that's dumb. I can't believe they're canceling.
We invite you to be a part of the solar eclipse show on Monday. We have no idea what will happen on the show. It could be really weird. It could get strange on air. We could be totally distracted. So we'll see.
They say the sun and the moon can make people do weird things.
It could. And I'd advise you to be watching on the stream that day as well. Just a heads up. All right. Something that I thought was very interesting. Diesel and I, during the night, during this morning, we power ranked our teams remaining in the field of the Final Four for the men's and the women's, right? What I did think was super interesting was when I saw your rankings. So because of that, we're going to do the women's rankings first. You, Diesel, do not have the South Carolina Gamecocks ranked number 1 out of the 4 remaining teams. Explain why.
I don't. So this is a power ranking system. Okay. It's who do I think is most likely to win games going forward.
Sure.
NC State is my 4 seed. UConn is my 3 seed. I've got South Carolina as the 2 and Iowa as the 1. Because Iowa is absolutely spanking people right now. Because Caitlin Clark is unstoppable right now. And if I had to put money on an Iowa-South Carolina game right now.
Ooh, don't say this, Diesel. Don't do it.
I would
don't
put
do
my
it.
money
Don't do it.
on Iowa.
No.
I would put my money on Iowa. I think South Carolina, top to bottom, is a better basketball team. I really do. I genuinely think top to bottom, they are a better basketball team. But when you've got a star like Caitlin Clark, who's playing as well as she is, she dropped 41 on LSU. Another team, by the way, that we all said is a more complete basketball team. Top to bottom, they're better than Iowa.
I picked them.
And statistically, we talked about it earlier this week. Statistically, LSU was very consistent. All 4 of their starters were in double digits in the mid to high teens.
Yeah.
The one starter who didn't get a double figures scored 9 points in that game.
Right.
But Caitlin Clark scored 40. So Caitlin Clark almost outscored 4 of LSU's starting 5 by herself. And so that's why I'm saying that if it's my money right here, right now, I'm taking Iowa over South Carolina. It's not what I want to see happen.
Sure.
I'm not saying that at all. But if I had to power rank them, I got South Carolina 2, Iowa 1.
So I'm going to do my absolute best to tell you you're wrong. However, I did see Caitlin Clark play with my own eyes.
Yeah.
And I did pick LSU, and the team that I thought would give South Carolina a fit in round 3 would be LSU. I watched the entire game back a month or so ago whenever South Carolina and LSU played. It was a very close game, as you could expect, and South Carolina was, I don't want to say lucky, South Carolina was fortunate to get out of that game on top. So, because of that, I turn around and watch the Iowa LSU game, and I see Caitlin Clark absolutely spank LSU. Was the game close at times? Sure. But did I ever feel like watching that game on Monday night? Did I ever feel like Iowa didn't have a chance and they didn't have a really strong hold on the game? No, I didn't. I felt like
Caitlin Clark just hit another 3.
She probably did. I felt like they were going to win throughout the game. However, as much as I do love watching Caitlin Clark play, this may be some homerism because we're in the state of South Carolina, but I do think that South Carolina is the better team top to bottom to stop and defend Caitlin Clark. Now, when they play, if they play, right, if those two were to play, I think the matchup is super, super fascinating between Caitlin Clark and South Carolina's guard play. I think South Carolina has a huge advantage in the paint with Cardoso, but South Carolina's guard play, their defense would have to be the key for that game if it were me. So when you look at the 4 teams, I would go South Carolina 1, Iowa 2. I agree with you. I would put UConn and NC State because you said the other day, Diesel, NC State is a team that you hate. So I'm going to put the Wolfpack at the bottom of the 4 in the women's. However, me putting South Carolina over Iowa, it was not an easy selection. They are both really good. I just believe in South Carolina. I believe in Dawn Staley. I believe in the depth they have. And I believe that this team, as we talked to Dawn Staley about just a few days ago on this very program, Diesel, I believe this team is destined for it this year.
Well, we're going to know unequivocally whoever wins this whole thing is going to be the best basketball team in the country because they will have had to go through a gauntlet. South Carolina beating LSU, Iowa beating LSU. And then if those two face off against each other, I mean, this is as good as the women's game has ever been.
It is.
It's as deep as the women's game has ever been. I mean, think back in the day, it was literally Tennessee and everyone else under Pat Summitt. And then it was Gino Auriemma and everybody else. Then it was Dawn Staley and everybody else. But now there's so much quality across the board in all of these these programs. So you've got 3 legitimate teams that could win the whole thing still left in this.
I find
NC State.
Watch NC State beat.
All right.
So, I find the women's more fascinating than I do the men's with the Final Four. One Tolo on the text stream says, Diesel, the one deficiency the Gamecocks have is that they do not have a dynamic scorer like Caitlin Clark. If they did, it'd be game over already. And I agree with the text. However, I would say this. The last few games, they hadn't shot the ball particularly well, South Carolina.
Yeah.
But when they are on offensively, don't go crazy, audience, when I say this, but when they're on offensively, give me their offense over Iowa's offense because South Carolina, when they're shooting the ball, when they're on in the paint, mid-range, three-point, their guards can shoot. I'm not saying that they have anybody on their team that's even close to what Caitlin Clark is. I'm just saying when they play as a team, they're deadly as well. And that's what I hope we get. But, unfortunately, that's why you play the game. So on the women's side, Diesel has Iowa number 1. I have South Carolina number 1. On the men's side, which I think is the least fascinating between the two, believe it or not, Diesel, you and I are not off at all. We actually have
very chalk,
the very same rankings. We have NC State 4, which
they're an 11 seed.
They're an 11 seed,
but they're playing as hot as
anyone. They're playing hot. So, even though I agree with you, we both have them at 4. There's part of me that plays devil's advocate and says, well, DJ Burns is playing better than any big man in the tournament. So while they are at 4, I guess we're underestimating them again. But you and I both have UConn 1, Purdue 2, Bama 3, NC State 4. I want to ask you, how far off is 3 and 4?
In my mind, there's still a decent gap.
Really?
There's a gap between 3 and 4 there. But it's the X factor is what's closing the gap. It's the NC State. I mean, we said it earlier this week. They shot 70+% against Duke in the Elite Eight. I mean, what do you do against a team that's shooting that hot?
Nothing.
So I'm really curious to see how this time off is going to affect these teams.
That's a good point.
Because they've been playing, every couple of nights now for a month. Well, the entire season, but the NCAA tournament is structured just a little bit differently from what your normal schedule would be.
And
now they're taking a good long break between the Elite Eight and the Final 4 games, and it's hard for me to say that that's going to hurt NC State, but I can't see how it won't.
But what's interesting about that is, and I'm glad you brought that up, last week when they had the break before this one, JD pointed out, and I agreed with him, that before Friday, they had a few days break, and JD pointed out, and I said, oh, yeah, you're right. They may cool off, right? They've had a few days off. They may cool off. Well, they didn't.
They cooled off in the first half.
They cooled off.
But they were able to recover.
That's right.
Have a lights out second half.
They cooled off for 20 minutes, and then after that, it was, like you said, it was on like Donkey Kong. However, in the men's side, I don't think we have any debate. And maybe we could be wrong. Maybe Purdue's pushing us more. Maybe Purdue could push UConn, but I don't think there's much debate about UConn being the best on the men's side. I think it's clear-cut favorite. UConn's the best team left. They've been the best team all year long. They flat out whooped everybody they've played. And they haven't really been, I don't want to say they haven't been tested yet or battle tested. That's not the right term, but they, like I said, they have dominated their game. So UConn and Purdue, I would say probably would be the best matchup in terms of the championship. Alabama, they're great. At times, their defense is a liability. It wasn't against Clemson. Clemson couldn't shoot the ball either, but Alabama, the inconsistency, it scares me a little bit there, Diesel.
Yep, little programming note coming up at 5:20. We'll have an interview with Bill Shanks of the Bill Shanks Show to talk Atlanta Braves. Those of you who have been clamoring for more Braves talk on the show, you're going to get it coming up at 5:20. At 5 o'clock, we have the 5 o'clock fight where Cole and I will go head-to-head on 3 different topics. There's no agreement here. We have to be on opposite sides of the argument. We have to fight it out. But coming up next, now that LSU, the team that so many of us saw as the villain in the women's NCAA tournament, is out, who are the new villains? We have to have heroes.
Ooh.
We have to have villains. Who is that? And is it the South Carolina Gamecocks? That's next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, broadcasting live from the Ingalls Market Studios, 25 Garlington Road in Greenville. We are the Fan Upstate.
Out on this show, you either bring it.
Angel Reese, Kim Mulkey, and co. were labeled as the villains of the women's NCAA tournament, probably for good reason. I mean, Angel Reese, she carried herself very confrontationally.
Don't tell Kim that.
Very competitively.
God.
Kim Mulkey, I mean, she's got big Karen energy.
She does.
In a big, big way. Though I love it. I mean, I'm here for personalities. Like we want people to have personalities because we're entertained by personalities, right? And then we smack people back down when they show us personality. It's like that. That's the great thing is about the real ones, the real personalities. They don't care what you think about it. They don't care what you say about them on social media. They're just out there being themselves. And that's why I love Kim Mulkey. I love Kim Mulkey for the same reasons that I loved Steve Spurrier when he was at South Carolina.
Right.
And when he was at Florida, because he would talk trash. I didn't love Kim Mulkey, throwing tantrums when Angel Reese fouled out of the game against Iowa. That was just like, oh, what do you mean? Oh, no, you can't throw her out of the game.
She does have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, I didn't like that. But hey, now that LSU are out of this thing, who are the new villains of the women's basketball tournament? I mean, it can't really be NC State because we're all looking at NC State as kind of the plucky, fourth best team still in it.
Mm-hmm.
People don't really know that much about NC State other than NC State fans. Is it UConn because they're one of the all-time juggernauts of the sport?
Yeah.
Is it Iowa? No, it's not Iowa because they have the media darling. I think there's a very good case to be made that South Carolina are the villains remaining in the women's NCAA tournament. And it's not necessarily fair to say that, but if you got to pick one, I mean, South Carolina's won titles.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn Staley at times can be a little bit prickly. She wasn't with us. She was fantastic with us when we had her on earlier this week. And by the way, if you missed that interview, we originally aired it on Tuesday at 6:20. We re-aired it yesterday at 3:20. You go back onto the podcast, you find either instance, you're going to be blown away at just how great Dawn Staley is to have on the show.
Sure.
And she talks about the personality of her team being goofy and fun and, not taking anything seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like if one of these teams is going to walk in to a room and you're going to hear the dun, 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 Darth Vader music, I think it's going to be South Carolina. Am I wrong?
So I would say UConn in the sense of they almost had that Alabama, New England Patriots label. And I don't know that South Carolina's there yet. But UConn, when they were winning back to back to back to back, I think they, in the time then, and I don't know that they're still labeled as they were then, but I think in the time when UConn was so dominant in women's college basketball, I think they had that kind of mantra that people feel about Alabama. They're tired of seeing them win. The same thing.
Mystery because you never really heard much coming out of that program.
Yeah,
they just won.
They
just kicked your ass and got on a bus and left.
The same thing you heard from the New England Patriots. They won 11 NCAA Division I championships, 4 in a row, 2013, 14, 15, and 16, plus 50 conference regular season and tournament championships, which is just unreal for the UConn Huskies. So to answer your question, Diesel, if you had to label a team the villain, I hear what you're saying with South Carolina. I just feel like that team is too nice. Now, the Cardoso and the incident with LSU may have changed that a little bit, but they're Dawn Staley's super nice. The players are nice. Everybody loves Dawn Staley. Everybody loves the way that she coaches and the way that she treats her players and the program that she's built.
I thought Dawn Staley was a dog.
She is a dog when she has to be. She is a dog. But I think in the case of a villain, I think that I would probably have to go UConn. But
LSU made it easy to be a villain, right?
They did.
Like Angel Reese, her personality, very confrontational. Mulkey's personality, very confrontational. And then, of course, there was all of the controversy around LSU's women's team not being out on the court for the national anthem, which I think there was far, far, far too much made of that
Sure.
than should have been. That was their team ritual. Like they never came out for the national anthem. And we are all so hypersensitive after the Colin Kaepernick issues and all of the protests since then. They're not protesting anything. LSU is not protesting anything. They're using that little extra time, that 60 seconds extra to game prep, to stay focused, whatever it is. It's not really our business.
So UConn women, they were ranked 34 times as preseason number 1. They made it to the Final Four. Let's see. I'm sorry. They were ranked 612 weeks total in the AP poll. As I said, they have made the NCAA tournament 35 years, which is just unbelievable. 23 Final Fours and 11 championships, 30 conference championships, and they've done that, in an impressive way. So I would label them as the villain. I do think it's interesting, though, to have to decide between the two. NC State, they don't really have a reason to be.
No. Do us a favor. If you're listening, text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Cole and I disagree. I say South Carolina are the new villains. Cole says UConn are the new villains in the women's NCAA tournament. There's got to be one. You can't fence ride here. You got to pick one of these. Text into the show. Who do you think it is? JD Wyatt says Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR is the only one y'all didn't mention.
Mm-hmm.
I could think of I got so sick of him winning all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
He also says, I would say the Gamecocks are more the black sheep in a sense that they are the ones the media don't want to cover because they have nothing worth covering in their eyes. He also said Angel is going to get her eyelashes played off in the WNBA.
He said the media don't want to cover because they have nothing worth covering in their eyes. I don't know that I agree with that.
I think they just run everything so low key and so close to the vest that there's not a whole lot of fodder out there.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. That's how you should operate your team.
Right.
I mean, LSU's team had to hear all of the Kim Mulkey conversation leading up to that game, which I still don't know exactly what was going on with that hit job that came out on her.
Yeah. One texter agrees with you. Mike says the Gamecocks are the villains and points out that South Carolina beat UConn in the regular season in a game that was – I remember watching that game. If you didn't watch that game probably a month and a half ago, I'm just spitballing, I could be wrong. I watched that game for about the first half, and then I cut it off because South Carolina blew the doors off of UConn. I mean, blew the doors. That was when South Carolina was playing their best basketball. They were clicking on all cylinders. Pow was kind of coming on the scene, and Fuwali was fantastic that game. They blew the doors off of UConn. So I hope we don't see that matchup again because I don't think it'd be close. However, as we have to pump the brakes and remind ourselves, Diesel, with the now villain South Carolina Gamecocks, they got to beat NC State first. And the villains are going to be hunted. If they are the villains, people are going to have their numbers, just like people do when Clemson was number 1 in Alabama, and people, the way people play the Yankees or the Cowboys, anytime you play that team, you have a chip on your shoulder, so it's going to be tougher. And South Carolina, they definitely have a target on their back now.
Yep, and we are going to keep it here with basketball in the very next segment. But before we get you there, I do want to get you caught up on some of these Daily Wires, some of the stuff that's happening out there. This made me laugh.
Okay,
it's like why even bother with this? Aaron Rodgers got his NFL performance check, which is an amount based on how much you play and based on your salary. Aaron Rodgers last year, we all know, famously only played 4 snaps before he was taken out for the season. His performance-based check, $81.14.
Good for him.
Send me a check for $82. I mean, yeah, I'll gladly take $82 anytime. But it's just fun.
If I could never,
he only got $81.
If I could never hear the 2 words Aaron Rodgers and never have to say the 2 words Aaron Rodgers ever again on this program, yes, I would be so happy if I never had to hear that man's name again. I cannot stand Aaron Rodgers.
If Aaron Rodgers and the Paul brothers were in a boxing match together, I would root for the arena to burn down.
Yeah, that'd be
Can't
tough.
stand any of those guys. Let's see. The Atlanta Braves are off today. They've had so many weather issues over the past couple of days, but the Atlanta Braves are off 3-2 on the season so far. South Carolina took it on the chin in their midweek game last night. They lost 8-0 to the Georgia Southern Eagles. That's
wow.
Yeah, that's not good.
That was not even close, no. South Carolina.
No.
And again,
where's your midweek pitching?
It's a midweek game. I get it.
The weather wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Can't use that as an excuse. Noah Clowney went off last night against the Pacers.
Come on.
22 points, a career high. 10 boards, a career high. 3 3-pointers, a career high. And he shot 78% from the field.
I absolutely.
Go off with your bad self.
Yes, I absolutely love this. I mean, for somebody who is right here, from right here in the upstate, went to Dorman, that's just awesome to see. Not only did he have a career night last night, he's been having flashes of this throughout the season. Noah Clowney's been mentioned on SportsCenter. Noah Clowney's been mentioned all over social media. Brooklyn, not the best team right now, but on a team, a lot of times, Diesel, people fail to realize when you're on a team that's not good, yeah, you're not going to make a run, and it may not always be the most fun, but you do have a chance to make a name for yourself. And, man, that's incredible. 3 career highs last night and shot 77% from the field. Congratulations to Noah. That's awesome.
He's out there doing a Caitlin Clark, man, putting up multiple records every night. One more Daily Wire for me. 82% eclipse, solar eclipse coming Monday. Don't forget, 1:50 to 4:30 is when we're going to see that here in the upstate. I've got my fancy glasses.
I love
Colo's
it.
got his I can't see a thing right now. But yeah, that's coming. Remember to get something like these, would you? Don't look directly at a solar eclipse. You're an idiot if you look directly at a solar eclipse.
Wouldn't be the best thing.
Yeah. No.
And then one more.
These are out there all over the place. This one's interesting. Yeah, tell me about this last one, because I don't know much about this, and it seems potentially explosive.
It is weird. There's not a lot of legs to it yet, but it was mentioned by the Dallas mayor today. So the Kansas City Chiefs from 1960 to 1962, a very short time frame. They were the Dallas Texans. They were located in North Texas, just above Dallas, and the team originally played as the Dallas Texans as the part of the American Football League from 1960 to 1962, so 3 seasons. What's interesting is, in 1963, the owner, Lamar Hunt, moved the team to Kansas City. Why do we bring this up? Well, the Dallas mayor, after some Kansas City tax news, the Dallas mayor came out and said, hey, Kansas City, if you're not happy with what's going on up there, how about you just come on home? Come on, and let's have another team in Dallas, the third team.
Sell off the Cowboys. They can't win. Bring in the team that can win.
Just trade places, right? So on Tuesday night, voters in Jackson County, Missouri, struck down a sales tax proposal that would have helped fund major renovations to Arrowhead Stadium, as well as a brand new ballpark for the Royals. The Chiefs, who had committed $300 million in private money to the renovations, were hoping to use that public funding that got shot down to support the $800 million project. Woo. However, that did not happen. We would not be willing to sign a lease for another 25 years without the financing to property renovation and reimagine the stadium, says Chiefs chairman and CEO Clark Hunt on Tuesday via the Associated Press. The financing puzzle is very important to us to make sure we have enough funds to do everything we outlined. So the voters shot down the proposal, right?
We're in an era where people are flat out refusing to pay for stadiums $4 billion.
That's dumb.
And in some situations, I'm proud of the locals for saying, hell no, we're not paying for that. I still think the Greenville County was wrong when it came to the Malden Triumph Stadium, because that money was already in the bank account.
Right.
And you shot down using it for a purpose. I mean, I'm with all these people saying, hell no, you gotta find enough stadium, just renovate it.
Yeah.
Do it for less. Do what you can with the money you've got.
So the question becomes, if the Chiefs do decide to relocate, which would be several years down the road, where might they move? Well, Mayor Eric Johnson, the mayor of Dallas, a homecoming for the NFL's newly crowned dynasty could be in order. So remember, the Chiefs began life as I said, the AFL's Dallas Texans in 1960 before they moved to Kansas City 3 years later. After Tuesday night's news, they shot down the proposal. Johnson posted an article as the mayor of Dallas with the caption, "Welcome home, Dallas Texans." Hashtag Cotton Bowl, because the old Cotton Bowl Stadium in downtown Dallas is where they played those 2 or 3 seasons. And then continued his campaign on Wednesday morning. As I have said previously, our market is big enough, says Mayor Johnson, growing enough, and loves football more than any other market and could support a second NFL team, especially a franchise with deep roots here. So Johnson, the mayor, clearly believes that his city could support 2 NFL franchises, and he has campaigned for this before. However, we could do a whole segment about this. However, Diesel, the question is not would the city of Dallas allow it, not would Mayor Johnson allow it.
Of course he would.
Would that guy up there and the old man sitting up there in that box, would he allow it? Jerry Jones. Because you know as well as I do, he's going to shoot that down immediately.
That would get fierce.
Oh, can you imagine the storyline?
Can you imagine the storylines coming out of Kansas City?
It'd be great
if the fans there lost the Chiefs.
It'd be great. It'd be great. It'd be great radio. It'd be fantastic. They would lose their mind.
Skip Bayless would get his second win.
Oh, he would lose his mind. So, again, not a ton of legs to any of that yet, but it could happen. It could happen. It's interesting.
It's fun media speculation.
It absolutely is.
But I do think Kansas City Cowboys sounds better.
Ooh, Kansas City Cowboys. And just do away with the Cowboys?
Some alliteration, yeah.
Diesel, that's terrible. That is terrible. All right,
They're
coming
not
up.
even America's team.
All right. Coming up next, we're going to end the show on that note. We are going to tell you, based on what the stats say, who has the better chance of stopping UConn. We talked about how dominant UConn is on the men's side. We're going to tell you statistically who has the best chance to stop them. Let us know who you think has the best chance to do that. 71307. Start your text with FAN. Phone lines are open as well. 844-326-3663. He is Diesel on Twitter at Diesel on Radio. I am Cole Bryson on Twitter at the Cole Bryson. When all of this madness began back, I don't know, 2.5 weeks ago with the brackets and everybody.
March Madness.
March Madness.
The March Madness.
Yeah. The March Madness. When the March Madness
Yeah,
began.
you're going to have to be more specific. There's a lot of madness.
That's true.
Out there.
That's true. When the March Madness, the madness of March, when it began a couple of weeks ago, Diesel in the audience, Tolo's out there, that stands, by the way, for turn it on, leave it on. If this is your first time hearing that phrase, I did pick UConn to win the whole shebang.
I did not.
However, I did burn my entire bracket down on the way there. UConn's the only team left that I have in the bracket.
I had Auburn winning the whole thing.
Oh, they got
playing
bounced.
Houston in the national championship game.
That would have been a great pick. I mean, I'd have thought, yeah, it's a good chance, right? Until the bracket
Seems
starts.
logical until it wasn't.
That's right. That's exactly right. Until they get beat, it makes sense. It makes sense until they lose. However, what I do think is interesting, Diesel, audience, can you convince me in this segment? We have, 8 minutes before we get a break. Is there any way you can convince me, based on stats, based on the eye test, based on whatever you think in your heart of hearts, Tolos, that there's a team out there in the Final Four, Alabama, NC State, or Purdue, that can knock off UConn? What I mean by that is, who has a better chance to stop the Huskies on the men's side? Is it Alabama? Is it NC State? Is it Purdue? Which of those three, Diesel, do you want to start with?
Well, I'm going to tell you who it won't be.
Okay. That's okay, too.
First, easy answer. It won't be themselves. UConn's not going to beat themselves.
Oh, you don't think so?
But truthfully, I don't think the answer is what this texter says. I don't think the answer is Alabama. I don't think Alabama has a shot against UConn.
A texter said Alabama?
Yeah, we have a texter who said Alabama best chance of stopping UConn with the athleticism at guard and length at wing.
Thanks for the text.
Now, here's the problem, texter. Here's the problem. Alabama scores a lot. Number 2 in the nation on scoring in the season. That's great. They can score with anybody.
However,
they also give up a ton of points. They also give up 81 points a game, which is 9 more points than anyone else in the Final Four. 9 more points than NC State, who's given up an average of 72 a game. I think Alabama, if everything goes right for them, that let's say they play to their average defensively on the season.
Sure.
And they give up 81 points to UConn. As a matter of fact, UConn is scoring on average 81 points a game. So if Alabama can hold UConn to their average, they stand a chance. But UConn's defense is so good. 63 points allowed per game. That's the best of the 4 still in. So they've got the second best offense remaining. The third best. UConn has the third best offense remaining in the tournament, but they've got by far the best defense.
So you're saying what concerns you the most with Alabama is the
defense.
Do not blame that game on the defense. Okay?
Oh, Jim Mora agrees. Listen,
They're going to give up a lot of points to UConn.
that will be a lot of points if they play really, really fast. What I mean is, I think that when I say that will be a lot of points, if Alabama plays that fast pace where they're just running and gunning, I think they're going to give more possessions to UConn.
But both of these teams like to play fast.
Well, if you're telling me both like to play fast, there's going to be a lot of points scored. You would think. Alabama, was it Sanford they played in the tournament, and they gave up like 95 points or something like that, and they scored 110, something crazy, or was it Charleston? Maybe it was Charleston.
They
I don't know why.
109.
Yeah,
109 to Charleston.
So I agree. That's what concerns me from the Alabama.
They scored 109 against Charleston. They gave up 96,
which is a ton of points to give up.
They gave up 96 to a 13 seed.
That's a ton of points. They were better. He says Alabama's best chance at stopping UConn because of the athleticism at guard and length at wing. What I would be interested to see, though, Diesel, when talking about that text with Alabama being able to stop UConn, we're going to see it firsthand on Saturday. However, when you do play a fast pace of play, when you play fast, when you play upbeat, and when UConn plays upbeat as well, what I'm worried about is, what I initially worry about is this thing becoming some sort of track meet. Because if Bama gets sucked into the fast-paced play and UConn does as well, let's say by the midway point of the second half, both teams are slinging it. They're not wasting much time into the time clock, into the possession clock, and they're just guns a-blazing, shooting the ball. As soon as they get down the floor, they're shooting the ball, right? I don't know, as good as Alabama is, Diesel, I don't know if it were to become a track meet, I don't know that there's a team that has a clear advantage. So my point to that is, as we saw Alabama do against Clemson at times in the second half, the only hope for me when you're talking about Alabama having a chance is they're going to have to get UConn out of their game, because that's how they beat Clemson. They got Clemson out of their game. Clemson does not like to run. Clemson likes to slow things down, half-court sets, and they got Clemson out of their game. So how can Alabama, if you're telling me that Alabama has the best chance, how can Alabama get UConn out of their game? If you're telling me it's going to be defense, well, as Diesel said, they are inconsistent when it comes to defense. I think it's fascinating. I really do. I think this is probably going to be the better game. I'm just not totally sold on Alabama's defense quite yet.
No. So I think Alabama is the third most likely, or in other terms, the least likely to beat UConn. I just don't think that they're going to be able to slow UConn down enough.
Okay.
Number 2 on my list is NC State. I think NC State is kind of a team of destiny this year.
Could be.
And the way they've found ways to win is what impresses me so much about NC State. I mean, they're not great offensively. 76 points a game. They're giving up 72 points a game, which is not bad. Not bad defensively. They're just not elite offensively. But NC State has found a way 9 straight times. So there's just, to me, there's something about this season. I don't know. Is it the ghost of Jimmy V running around on the court that has them in a position to be here? Something about it's the intangible.
It's DJ Burns.
Yeah, it's DJ Burns. It's the intangible that I can't figure out. I can't figure out what it is that's causing NC State or helping NC State to be this good. So that's my number 2, and by default number 1, I've got Purdue. I think Purdue is just a complete basketball team, and I don't think UConn has seen too many guys like Zach Edey.
I would agree.
So on paper, Purdue has the best chance. NC State has the second best chance, and I'm just not high on Alabama playing UConn.
Texter also says that Latrell Wrightsell is coming back for Alabama, the player that was out. Well, he better come back, and he better be a force defensively. The statistic that stands out to me the most, before we put a bow on this, Diesel, UConn averaging 63 points allowed.
Yeah.
Like, you type that up into our run sheet, and I'm looking at that thinking, is that a typo? Like, that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're averaging 60. They're giving up an average of 63 points.
Yeah, and you look at the tournament. They gave up 52 against Illinois, a 3 seed. They gave up 52 against San Diego State, a 5 seed. They gave up 58 points against Northwestern, and they gave up 52 points against Stetson. Nobody has scored outside of the 50s against them in this tournament.
That's unreal.
They are playing fantastic defense right now.
So that to me, and we'll get more into it tomorrow before the weekend because the games are on Saturday. That to me is the fascinating story of the weekend. Alabama, UConn. Can UConn, Diesel, can they slow Alabama down?
That's going to be, it's going to be fascinating to watch over the next couple of days. When we come back, it is time for Cole and I to put our dukes up, throw some haymakers at each other. It's time for the 5 o'clock fight. 3 topics that Cole and I will slug it out on, and you tell us who's the winner. That's next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstate.
sports talk from start to finish.
We've spent a lot of time getting you hyped up, set up, knowledged up for the Final Four. But we got the coverage for you right here as well. Final Four and championship game coverage right here on the Fan Upstate. We got the exclusive Final Four play-by-play coverage starting Saturday at 4 o'clock. Game 1, NC State versus Purdue. Game 2, Alabama versus UConn. We have the national championship game for you as well. Monday night at 7:30. Only on the Fan Upstate. You are not going to find it anywhere else in the Upstate other than right here on the Fan Upstate. 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg. We thank you so much for being a part of the show today, whether you're listening to us over the air, whether you're listening to us on the stream, or whether this is some point in the future, you're back listening to us on the Odyssey app. If you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, however it is you choose to consume the show, we love you, Tolos. We appreciate you being here. It is time right now for Cole and I to disagree. We will not ever, ever have the same opinion on this segment. We will fight it out about literally anything you want us to fight it out about. So here we go. It is time for the 5 o'clock fight.
All out slugfest, and nobody's leaving unscathed. 3 topics, 1 winner. It's the 5 o'clock fight on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Again, we love hearing from you. Anything you want us to fight it out about, please send me an email, diesel@thefanupstate.com. Just put the word fight as the subject line of your email. We got a juicy one that just might get me in some trouble here in the very first one. So let's hit it.
Round 1, fight.
Should Furman bring back its baseball program? This was texted into the show yesterday.
I like
by
it.
an anonymous texter. He even put anonymous on the text because I think whoever it was afraid to put their name. It was, see, we have to fight it out. Them's the rules. And I say no. Furman shouldn't bring back the baseball program. Why? Well, number one, baseball just doesn't make money. It's a fact. It's a fact. Only a handful of football programs make money. Maybe 2 or 3 college basketball programs make money. Literally every other sport on every other campus in this country loses money. It costs the university money to put on that sport. And so I say if Furman decided that they didn't have the finances to do this thing right a couple of years ago, I know COVID is a big part of why the baseball program went away. I say leave it gone because let's be real. Furman wouldn't win a whole lot of baseball games anyway. Out of 20 years leading up to the 2020 season, when they cut the sport, they were only above 500 7 times out of 20 years. 2 times out of the last 10. It wasn't a particularly great, successful winning program. So you did what you had to do, and I just say leave it dead.
Furman should absolutely bring back baseball. You say baseball doesn't make any money. Well, I have news for you. No other sport there makes money either. So we can't just ban all those other sports. Football's the only moneymaker. We know that. There are a lot of good athletes from the area, and Furman absolutely could use their backyard to build that program back up very quickly. There are a lot of competitive programs in this state, and Furman needs to be one of them. It makes no sense. It makes 0 sense not to have a baseball team. I think Furman should bring it back. I know you lose money on it, but do whatever you have to do to bring it back. Let us know what you think.
Remember, you can tell us who wins each fight round by round. You can text into the show, 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. It's time to throw yet another body blow at you, Cole. What you got?
Round 2, fight.
We heard some reports over the last couple of days of some experts who have come up with a system that will save college football. Should there be college football super conferences in the vein that it was proposed by College Sports Tomorrow, CST, to have 8 divisions of 10 teams 70 of those teams would be protected, could never be relegated. 10 of those would be the top 10 of the remaining 50 brands, all competing to get into that league of 10.
Right.
Should there be a college football super conference and restructuring? I say, hell yeah. Reorganize. I love the idea, especially if they reorganize those 10 team divisions regionally, get us back to some geography that makes some sense here. It'll allow the power conferences to shed some dead weight. Every time it's brought up, people say, Vandy, we don't need them. Well, you need them in baseball, but you don't need them really in football. So you could shed the dead weight of the Vandys, of the Wake Forests, of the Syracuses of the world. I love the idea of promotion and relegation. I say, hell yeah, let's go forward with this plan.
Absolutely not. Everyone has an expert opinion. These experts here think that we should do this. These experts there think we should do this. I hear you, and I understand that, it could be a way to cut dead weight, but at the end of the day, I'm not for it. I don't think a super conference benefits the game. You want everybody to be unified. Well, yeah, we want rivalries. Conference rivalries are fun. I think conferences need to stay in the picture. For that reason, I don't love the idea. I say no. I'm going to vote no on my ballot to the super conference, Diesel.
Okay, there's two. Some of you, this might be the tiebreaker that decides who wins the fight. Ultimately, it is time for one more.
Final round. Fight.
Should the NFL draft be reorganized and changed? Yes or no? I say yes. I think the NFL draft process is completely ass backwards here. I hate the fact that the best college players go to the worst situations. I think it definitely needs to be overhauled. The best teams who miss the playoffs should get the first and second and third picks. So in my mind, in my structure, in my plan, the 15th best team in the league, because there's 14 that make the playoffs, right? So 15 through 32 would get draft picks. 1 through would get the first draft picks. And then after that, the Super Bowl winning team all the way down to the 14, the playoff teams, they all get put into a lottery. It incentivizes winning. It disincentivizes tanking. You have to keep trying. You have to keep scratching and clawing throughout the season, even if you're having a bad year, to improve your draft stock. I genuinely don't see teams on the bubble intentionally trying to miss the playoffs so that they could get the number one overall pick. I think that's a ludicrous assertion that people like to put out there every time I bring this up. But I think we need to overhaul the NFL draft and stop putting the best college players on the worst teams.
Well, my only problem with that is I don't think there would ever be any parity. I do think the reason it is the way it is now is because they want an even balance. They don't want teams to have an unfair advantage, and they don't want the teams with the most money, who are the best teams out there, to get the best players or even those in the middle of the pack. I think with the way the draft is set up now, it gives teams at the bottom a chance to rebuild their franchise, which ultimately means more money for the league and also means that team could be better. And you, as I said to begin the point, you don't want the bad teams being bad all the time. You don't want the good teams being good all the time. So for that reason, I say keep the NFL draft where it is.
It's up to you. Who won the fight? You get to be the judge, jury, and executioner here. You get to text in at 71307. Start your text with keyword fan and tell us who won each round of the 5 o'clock fight.
What do you want Diesel and Cole Bryson to fight about next?
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to Diesel at thefanupstate.com. Subject line fight on the Fan Upstate.
We got a lot of texters here who are chiming in on our 5 o'clock fight. Let's see here. Texter says Furman has a huge, what? They have a huge endowment. Okay. So you're saying Furman should dip into its endowment to fund a baseball program that's losing a ton of money, that's not winning any games. I'm not sure that makes good financial sense. I understand competitively, yeah, you want the team back. I get it, but it doesn't make any sense, and I don't think there's any push to bring that program back. Texter says Furman's president predicted they'd be on the leading edge of a tsunami of colleges cutting baseball during COVID. In the end, there were 2 Furman and is it Chicago? Chicago State. Texter says Cole wins that round. Yeah, I get it. It's no fun to have your team, your school cutting sports. That happened at my school. App State cut men's soccer, and they were a good team. It was a good program. And what really stinks about that is not long after that, as App State was in the Sun Belt, the Sun Belt got reorganized into a really, really good soccer conference.
Sure.
I'm not a huge soccer fan, so it doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but those in the know say, wow, this is a collection of really good soccer programs. So it stinks to see a program that you had that was doing well that got the big ugly axe because of finances and because of COVID, and not to be able to bring it back. Texter says no one cares about Furman baseball. Leave it dead. That's mean. Texter.
A little rough.
Says
must be a Wofford
scoring
fan.
baseball team and number one batting average team in the nation lives in Spartanburg. Look,
true.
Wofford owns baseball in the upstate. Okay, so now I understand. Now you're opening salvo there. Makes sense. You're a Wofford fan throwing sharp, pointy objects down at Furman.
It is impressive, though, that Wofford in the nation leads in batting average. Like,
that's wild.
That is crazy.
That's wild.
I have to give credit where credit's due there.
What are these pitchers serving up? Are they throwing beach balls instead of baseballs over there?
I think they use tees.
Okay.
They still serve them up on tees over there. I don't know, man. That's impressive.
Everybody's got a high average in batting practice.
First-year coach at Wofford, and they're raking over there. Hey, I hear it. I like it. I'm here for it.
Texter says round 1 goes to Diesel. Baseball is dead. Round 2 goes to Diesel. Conference rivalries don't exist anymore anyway with all of this restructuring. And then the same texter says round 3 goes to Cole. Says my way would build super teams. No, I just want a team who's good, but not great, not quite good enough to make the playoffs to get that one piece that they need. They have first dibs at getting the piece that they need. Let's see here. Texter says fight round 1 goes to Cole. Round 2 goes to Diesel. Round 3 goes to Diesel. Thank you, Nathan R. Texter. Oh man, he goes clean sweep. Cole. Rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then Texter says you have to take Title IX into play as well.
True.
As a former college and professional baseball player. ... Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I get it. Title IX complicates things.
It does.
Because baseball, men's sports, even though they do lose money, they make a little more money than women's sports. But the law says you can't kill off a women's sport just because it makes less money.
Madcraft said, sorry, Diesel, but Cole round 1, Diesel round 2, Cole round 3. So
hey, you're dead to me, Madcraft.
Yeah. No longer does Diesel read Madcraft's comments.
We used to be friends. Not no more.
What was round 2? He did agree with you on the super conference. Yeah. So he agreed with you on 1.
Well, the crazy thing about the super conferences is, yes, it is a super conference idea. And we're going to get back into this later on in the show, get you deep back into the weeds and what's going on here. But yes, it would be a super conference in the way that you could consider the NFL to be a super conference of professional football. But my idea, I would love to reorganize these divisions of 10 teams regionally. So it's not called a conference anymore in the sense that we know conferences in college football.
Right.
I mean, you could keep the names if you wanted to for tradition, but you could group 10 schools in the Southeast and say, all right, this is Division A. And then you do your 10 schools starting in Louisiana, going into Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma. That's a conference, which kind of feels like the old Southwest. And then you could essentially resurrect the Pac-12 South, the Pac-12 North. I mean, it makes total sense to do it that way.
I have an idea.
When it makes sense, they'll never do it.
Here's an idea. Let's test it out on the new NCAA football game.
Ooh, you make your own conferences, right?
Why not?
Nice.
That should be. I don't know if they have hit export on that thing yet, but somebody needs to call them right now and let them know. Call EA Sports and say, ho, before you hit export, before you hit save and export that bad boy, if we want to see all these conference changes and realignments, let's see how they'd work on the video game.
Yeah.
There's got to be an option for that.
You should have the ability. I mean, you can create anything you want on these games, right?
Like you're in your franchise.
Yeah, you
franchise
can
mode or
make
something?
Caleb Williams wear pink lipstick and pink fingernails and
Diesel.
pink cell phone cover and
You did not.
and a pink pacifier in his mouth. I mean, you can do all that stuff.
You did not. You do not love this Caleb Williams, do you?
No, it's a stupid thing. Caleb Williams doesn't have it between the ears, man. He's going to be a bust in the NFL, straight up.
On the stream, well, duh, they are going to try to create a baby NFL. No one thought that far out. And then another message on the stream, Florida State, and Miami should all be playing one another every year. I don't disagree with that.
Here's what's interesting. Give me a team. I mean, do you think Vanderbilt would make it into this protected group of 70? I don't think so. And if they do it based off a straight ranking,
Off of like
this is for football only.
power ranking?
Yeah, this is for football only. We don't know exactly how they plan on determining who are these 70 brands.
Sure.
But, I mean, do we really think Vanderbilt deserves to be a top 70 brand? No, I don't. So I'm thinking like, I kept looking to find a ranking of brands in college athletics.
So where would they fall then? Where would they go?
I think Vandy would fall in. They'd be in the group of 50, essentially. The 53 remaining teams outside of the 70 that would be protected.
Yeah.
They would be in that group of 53 who are fighting to get into that last division of 10. Now, here's I think,
53
I
fighting
think
for
being
10.
in that last division of 10 would be really bad as a fan because your schedule is changing each and every year. You are not necessarily facing anyone who's remotely close to you geographically because those 53 teams are spread out across the country, right?
Right.
So if you're at App State and you're put into that group of 53, but you make it into the division of 10, then you may be playing Boise State, you may be playing San Jose State, you may be playing, Villanova. Villanova's FCS. I'm just trying to think like who's in Liberty. You may be playing MAC schools. I mean, you're all over the place. Ton of travel. It would be incredibly expensive to compete in that group of 10, in that division of 10.
That's just mind-boggling to me, though, Diesel, that 53 of those schools would be then competing to be in the final 10. Like, man. That's a lot.
So here it is. I found Athlon Sports, their football top 133 from 2023. And we can use this as a basic guide. Okay.
This is top what?
This is all of them ranked.
Oh, okay.
All
Gotcha.
133. So I'm going to go through the teams who are, again, this is a 1-year snapshot. This is not what they would use, but this is the best we can do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with number 60, Florida, Cal, UCF, South Carolina, Wisconsin, Coastal Carolina, Jacksonville State, TCU, Washington State, and BYU.
Florida,
That's
60?
69. Yeah. Florida finished 60th in 2023.
God.
So here's the cutoff. This is the bubble, right? These are the teams that would be on the bubble. Illinois, Western Kentucky, Texas State, South Alabama, USF, Syracuse, Colorado, Minnesota, San Jose State, and Nebraska. That is 70 through 79.
Where's Vandy in there?
Vanderbilt. Okay, let's look for Vanderbilt.
They've got to be top 70, right?
This is bad. Vanderbilt finished 2023 114.
Oh my God.
So that right there.
They were that bad?
Yeah, that right there is the reason why Vanderbilt would not be in
Jeez.
the top, not be in the protected group of 70 schools who cannot be relegated.
That is insane.
Out of their conferences or out of their divisions. If this happened, the hardest part would be like relearning to say divisions and not conferences.
Sure.
Because that would really bug me. But so
wow.
Yeah. And then like what happens with lawsuits? Or schools going to sue and say, I used to be in the SEC where we were making $50 million a year just in television revenue. And now that revenue goes away. How are we going to be able to compete? What are we going to do? Like, that's what's really fascinating to me is how many of these schools essentially get grandfathered in. Because, I mean, I'm looking up to see what were the best non-power brands in 2023.
Yeah.
Again, 1 year snapshot. James Madison, 28. I mean, they just got here,
Wow.
so it would be tough to put them in as a protected group of 70. Troy finished 30th. UTSA finished 35th. Memphis 39. Memphis 38. App State 39. Miami of Ohio 40. Toledo 41. UNLV 43. So you have to assume there's a handful of schools who are the bottom feeders in their power conferences now,
Right.
who would not be in that protected group of 70. And then who are those schools that would win the lottery? And 1 year snapshot looking at the Memphis's, App State, Miami of Ohio, Toledo, UNLV, Wyoming, Air Force, those schools who win the frickin' lottery and get put into that group of 70 protected brands.
Texter says you would have to allocate funds for travel for the group of 53 from TV deals, etc.
Crazy expensive.
It would be mighty, mighty expensive. All right, coming up next, if you're a Braves fan, we invite you to stick around as we do each and every segment. Tolo, turn it on, leave it on, wire to wire. But we sat down with Bill Shanks, and we are going to have that interview for you coming up next. I asked Bill Shanks how he compares this year's roster to the 2021 roster that won it all. The Atlanta Braves have had some breaks in this regular season that were not anticipated. We'll talk to Bill Shanks in just a second, but before we do that, I want to remind you that we are at the Fan Upstate, the home for the Final Four and the championship game coverage. That coverage lives exclusively here on the Fan Upstate, starting Saturday with the Final Four play-by-play coverage at 4 p.m. Game 1, NC State, Purdue. Game 2, Alabama, UConn. National championship coverage, live play-by-play Monday night at 7:30. Only on the Fan Upstate. We cannot wait to have those games for you. It doesn't get any bigger than the national championship, and we'll have that for you right here after Wire to Wire on Monday night, and again this Saturday for the Final Four, which should be some incredible games. All right, it's time now for our interview with Bill Shanks. Now time to bring in our first guest of the program today on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. It is Bill Shanks of the Bill Shanks Show. Bill, so good to have you on today. We appreciate you making time for us. A little bit of a weird start for the Atlanta Braves with a couple of rain delays, one in Philadelphia, one in Chicago, a game being postponed. Braves fans overall, though, Chris, I think are eager to see this team more consistently, but I want to start off by asking, what should Braves fans expect now that the season has started from a guy that has a lot of question marks that they signed in free agency in Chris Sale?
Well, the trade for Chris Sale was, I think, a great one. I mean, they gave up someone who wasn't really going to play full time for them in Vaughn Grissom. Vaughn was not going to play left field. He was not going to be in a platoon. He was just going to be a utility guy. And so Chris Sale is healthy. He looked great on Sunday for his first start. He'll start again this coming Sunday against the Diamondbacks. And I can't wait to continue to see him for the rest of the season. I think we know when this guy's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in the sport. So right now he's healthy, and you got to hope that'll continue.
Bill Shanks of the Bill Shanks Show joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Bill, I want to get your opinion on this because this is something that's really, I think, going to pick up a lot of steam over the next couple of weeks. It's a story coming out of 4 major league ballparks that are implementing face recognition to get fans into the stands quicker. I have quite a few problems with that in terms of privacy. Obviously, I don't know how exactly fans are setting this up, how they're submitting their photos to get into these games faster and faster. Have you heard anything regarding whether or not Atlanta wants to try to implement that at Truist Park?
No, I've not heard anything about this. I don't know anything about it, so I can't really comment on it, but I haven't heard anything regarding the Braves on it either.
Hey, Bill, how does Spencer Strider follow up this season? Obviously, a fantastic season last year. We saw him give up too early in the opening day start for Spencer Strider. How does he follow up this season for Braves fans and for them to still be confident that he's the number one and not Max Fried?
Well, they just started Spencer the first game. I think the Braves have 2 ace pitchers with Spencer Strider and Max Fried. I think they're outstanding pitchers. They're 2 of the best in the National League for sure. And a lot of people before the season started last week when they were putting out their candidates for their awards, postseason awards, they had Max and Spencer on there. So I think Spencer just needs to continue doing what he's doing. He's added a curveball to his arsenal. He looks great. Looked very good in the first game of the season. Can't wait to watch him tomorrow night against Arizona. And so, yeah, I think he just needs to continue to be that leader that I think he's evolving into for the pitching staff. And he and Max Fried are one of the best 1-2 punches in the sport.
Bill, you know how it goes whenever things aren't playing out the way that fans want them to. Everybody turns into an armchair analyst. Everybody knows better than the staff who get paid quite a lot of money to do this professionally. A lot has been made about the white hot way that the Braves were hitting going into the postseason last year, and then obviously the drop off once they got into the postseason. Has there been any conversation, any strategizing of how to maybe work around that this year if the Braves find themselves in a similar position?
Well, there's no question that scoring 8 runs in 4 games after averaging 5.85 runs per game over 162 was a shocking thing. It was just bad timing. It just a fluky thing, whatever you want to call it. The other day, when they were playing Philadelphia and they were scoring runs at will there in games 1 and 2, I just laughed and said, they couldn't run into a run last October in Philadelphia, and now they're just scoring them with ease. So that's baseball. That's kind of how it goes sometimes. It's not what fans want to hear, but as far as the strategy for October, we got to enjoy the first 6 months of the season first, hope that they're healthy when the playoffs roll around, and hope that they can have people hot. You got to have heroes in October. They had heroes in 2021, whether it was Freddie Freeman and Jock Peterson in the Brewers series, or Eddie Rosario in the LA series, or Jorge Soler and Max Fried in the World Series. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So playoffs are tough. It's not easy. And regardless of what you do in the regular season, when the reset button's pushed in October, you got to start all over. And so you just got to hope that when that rolls around, they'll be good to go.
Hey, Bill, what's your reaction every time you see the headline, "The Braves have signed Jesse Chavez"?
It's Groundhog Day. Just doing it over and over again. Why is he leaving? Why is he not being re-signed to begin with? But Jesse is very comfortable in that uniform. It's easy for him to do well. They really, really love the guy, and there's a comfortability factor in it that it works. It's amazing. But it's I'll never forget a couple of years ago after he got traded to the Angels for Rossiel Iglesias. I got in from a Friday night Braves game and turning on the late night games, and there was Jesse in the Angels bullpen and just wet in the bed, couldn't get an out to save his life. And I'm like, he looked like he was miserable. And 2 days later he got released, and 4 days later he was back with Atlanta, and he had a great year for the rest of the season. He's just better in the Braves uniform. He ought to pay them to make sure they don't let him go.
Bill, then why, in your opinion, do they keep letting him go?
Because he's 40.
His age, right?
I mean, he's 40, and they didn't want to trade him in that deal with the Angels. They kind of were forced into that because the Angels GM used to work with Atlanta and know too good of how Jesse is. I don't know. I mean, just roster management. Sometimes you try to move on, and then as the opportunity presents itself, things change over time with roster management, but there's no real rhyme or reason to it.
Bill, it seems like this team certainly has an embarrassment of riches right now, especially at the plate. What do the Braves need going forward? I know we're only a few days into the season now. It's hard to kind of analyze this at this point, just a few days in. But in your mind, what are the Braves' moves that they need to make in the early part of the season, leading up to the trade deadline, to ensure that the team obviously makes the postseason and then can make a deep run?
I don't think they need anything. I think they need to play. This is the best roster for the Atlanta Braves coming out of spring training in their history, in my opinion, on paper at least. They've got to go prove that. But I don't see no reason why the 3-2 record tells us anything different. They have looked great at the plate. They have had really good starting pitching, with the exception of one game, which that was has a little star by it too, because of a certain ball and strike call by the umpire in the game for Max Fried. The offense is averaging 7.2 runs per game. The bullpen and rotation ERA is just over 3.25. They just need to keep playing, and time answers those questions of what may be needed. But right now, they don't need a thing. This is a great roster.
Hey, Bill, real quick before we let you go, you mentioned great roster. In your opinion, how's this roster stack up against the roster in 2021?
Well, 2021 was different because obviously Alex Anthopoulos made 6 trades in 2 weeks to survive the Ronald Acuna injury and to get past the Marcell Ozuna injury / suspension that was going on. I think 1 through 26, this roster is much better than 2021. I don't think there's a question about that, to be honest with you. I think the depth on this pitching staff is unbelievable. There's depth in AAA with Gwinnett, where all 5 of their starting pitchers so far have done very well. This is a stacked roster and a stacked organization right now that we just got to enjoy the games as we go along here and see how they do.
Is Bill Shanks of the Bill Shanks Show. Cole, you were saying, like, basically turn on any radio in any market in Georgia and you're going to hear that guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everywhere, all over the state of Georgia. Just one of the best voices when you want to talk Braves.
For sure.
He is your guy.
He's in Macon, Atlanta, Warner Robins, Rochelle, Blackshear, Waycross, Brunswick, and Savannah.
Man.
Yeah, he's all over the
we
state.
need his level of distribution. Who's his agent?
Right.
He's calling up all these radio stations.
Well, he's been covering the Braves longer than anybody else, to my knowledge. And Braves fans here and in Georgia know Bill. And there was a ton to react to from that. I love what he said about this season being so different than the 2021 season when they won it all, because he's right. They didn't have their key players. Like the heroes that won the championship in 21 weren't even on the team to start this season. So it is a much different feel for Braves fans because, in his opinion, he's saying right now to start the year, they have a more talented roster. Obviously, injuries and things can happen, but they didn't get Jock Peterson. They didn't get Soler. They didn't get a lot of those guys until the trade deadline.
Yep. And he also said that they don't really need anything. They are as constructed. This team is the best roster in baseball, and there's no need to go out and get anybody. You know, there's no need to, in his mind, start looking at elevating any prospects. I mean, we're only a few games into the season, so trying to suggest that there's a problem, that was not my intent to suggest that there is a problem, but many positions need depth. I mean, we saw the catcher, blanking on his name right now, go down in the first game.
Yeah. Duval,
yeah. He went down in the first game. So, you could say that they need depth there.
No, I'm sorry. Was it Sean Murphy?
Sean Murphy, yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Duval. Sean Murphy.
Could also say that there's some much needed depth at pitcher in the rotation. I mean, it would be essentially hedging against the possibility of a Chris Sale and company getting injured. I mean, we have legitimate concerns about Chris Sale's longevity and his durability.
Well,
but it's still early in the season. I mean, it would be way too early to suggest that at this point. I mean, that's where I was going with that question.
Yeah, and he said it. It's early, and obviously things could happen. You don't want guys to get hurt. And Sean Murphy, which he did go out first game, but it was a oblique strain, so hopefully he'll be back soon. And, here's the reality of it. As long as a baseball season lasts, you're going to have guys get banged up. But in the same breath, nobody in 2021 would have told you that if Ronald Acuna went down, you would still win the World Series. Nobody would have said that. So while injuries do hurt, you do have depth for a reason, and hopefully guys in your farm system that you can bring up if you have to. But, it's just you're not going to go a whole season without your stars getting hurt. It just doesn't happen in baseball. There's just way too many games.
We do have some breaking news in a situation that I am fascinated and love watching, love keeping an eye on. This whole Florida State and Clemson versus the ACC saga.
Yeah.
A judge has denied Florida State's motion to keep the proceedings in the state of Florida. So the ACC got themselves a win on this. We'll see where this goes. The ACC released a statement a few hours or a few minutes ago, even as a matter of fact, stating that they felt like this was a big win for the conference and their ability to keep their teams together. So any Clemson fans or Florida State fans thinking, man, we're so close to getting out, maybe you're not. Not quite.
And real quick, Diesel, before we hit a break, some more news that came out today regarding something we talked about yesterday with a massive trade was Stephon Diggs going to the Texans. Well, today, the Texans have reworked that contract, and they have wiped those 3 years off of his contract so that, as JD pointed out on the stream a minute ago, this could be a rent-a-Stephon because he might be there for 1 year. I mean, really, he has the option now after 1 year to leave Houston, which is I don't know why that happened. Like, that concerns me. If you're the Texans and you're a Texans fan, that really, really concerns me because that's not good. You want him there long-term to help C.J. Stroud.
When we come back, we get deep into the weeds on this UConn difficulty in getting to Arizona.
That was crazy.
And why did this happen? Is it even a big deal? That's coming up next. We'll get into Matt Norlander's Twitter thread about what happened with the UConn Huskies, the number 1 overall seed. That's coming up next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstate. It's the hottest, newest show in the Upstate, Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, right here on the Fan Upstate. If you have something to say about anything we've said on the show today, or non-related as well, we'll take that. Text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. You can also call us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. UConn, I think most people are pegging them as the presumptive favorite to win this whole thing.
Sure.
They found themselves in a little bit of a travel conundrum trying to get to Arizona.
This was great, man.
Ahead of the games. Now, we want to be perfectly clear. None of this has anything to do at all with getting to Arizona in time for the games.
Sure.
Like those aren't for days, right?
Yeah, Saturday.
But UConn has found themselves in a travel pickle trying to get to Arizona for their media availability. And we live in a world and a time when people love tracking people's planes. They love using FlightAware as speculation that this coach is interviewing for that job and vice versa.
Sure.
So I think this is entertaining from that standpoint. Okay. So all of this comes from a thread from Matt Norlander, senior writer, analyst, and podcast host for CBS Sports. He's one of ours. He's one of our guys, CBS Sports HQ. He hosts on that station sometimes, or on that platform sometimes, excuse me. He started a thread all about what UConn has had to go through to get to Arizona. And all of this sounds like mamby-pamby first world problems, right? So here's this thread. Breaking. This is yesterday at 7 p.m.
I was going to say, it was right after we got off the air.
Yeah, this happened right after we got off the air. UConn does not have a plane to fly to Arizona at the moment. Dan Hurley told CBS Sports was supposed to take off at 6 o'clock Eastern time, but logistical and mechanical issues with the plane coming in from Kansas City forced significant delays. This goes on and on and on. The issue for UConn, among many, is their crew flying the plane from Kansas City would be over their FAA hours and can't fly UConn immediately to Arizona. I mean, that makes sense. I want the crew to be rested. You know, like you know, truckers, they have.
Yeah, it's against the law.
It's against the law. You can't make the team fly, even though the plane flies itself, right? You're going to charter, you're going to get up in the air, and then the plane takes over and does the thing itself. It says UConn's earliest option is to get a smaller plane from Cincinnati that wouldn't take off until 12:45 a.m. Eastern and not land until nearly 5 a.m. Eastern time, 2 a.m. Pacific time. And we've all been on flights where the plane was delayed because this wasn't ready, or they had to take care of this issue or that issue or whatever.
Yep.
So that plane from Cincinnati would require a fuel stop because it's smaller. The Huskies are going to get to Arizona with hours to spare before Thursday's media availability. Here's where this is. This is all about media. This is all about coverage. This is all
about us. Us, baby.
So they're working their butts off to try to get a charter as soon as possible, but nothing is available. And people are saying, well, why don't they just fly commercial? Well, they'd have to, first of all, they have to find a flight that's somewhat close. So they might have to fly out of New York City. So they'd have to put everybody on a bus or charter down to New York City to catch a flight to Arizona. So it's difficult to find there. And is there a flight with enough availability on such short notice to get the entire team on one plane?
Right.
They also like to use that time in the air to strategize. And, you know, it would be difficult. Though I have seen before, Cole, I don't know how many times you fly, how often you fly, but I have seen a college athletics team getting on commercial flights.
Yeah.
Like we know football charters, basketball charters, maybe in the SEC, women's basketball charters, maybe some baseball teams charter. But I would imagine that most just pick up and fly commercial. But I was in the Atlanta airport once, and I saw, 10 or 12 girls all dressed in the same, I don't even remember what school it was now, athletics gear. And they were going through the same horrible checkpoint, the same horrible security that everybody else who's getting on a plane had to go through. So I understand why teams want to charter, because they can use that time. But he goes on to say that UConn remains in limbo and is waiting on their earliest flight, but barring a stunner, it's not getting out until well after midnight, and will have to stop somewhere to refuel. If it waits on the plane from Kansas City, per Hurley, that crew can't fly until 10 a.m. on Thursday, which would have been 10 a.m. this morning. Obviously, a travel disaster for the number one overall seed. So this is where it gets a little hyperbolic. A travel disaster for the number one overall seed. All of their teams are on the ground in Arizona. Alabama and Purdue got in yesterday. NC State just landed in the past hour. He continues. The latest from UConn. A smaller plane is currently scheduled to arrive from Cincinnati a little after 11 p.m. Eastern yesterday. UConn had to trim its travel party, but will still be a flight time decision as far as refueling. It's going to come down to weight. So, man, this is when it gets really interesting.
Okay.
You know, if the travel party, I don't know how big a Division I travel party for basketball is, but I'm guessing it's probably like 30 or so.
Probably so.
Somebody had to stay home so that they could get everybody on the plane, get all their gear on the plane, and have enough fuel to get from Connecticut to Arizona without having to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So you better not be the fat dude because you ain't getting on this flight. They got to save the 295 pounds of the fat dude. Sorry, bro. You got to stay. You got to stay home. You got to fly commercial. You got to pick up with us later. And then he updates. He says, update, UConn is boarding its plane as we speak and hopes to take off in the next 15 or so minutes. He says, of all the leads I've ever written, this is a new one, that they were taxiing down the runway and were now taking off. And finally, the thread ends. UConn's plane touchdown at 6:12 a.m. Eastern, 3:12 a.m. Pacific time.
Ooh.
So UConn, through all of that, they still made it to do their interviews.
Thank the Lord.
Right? I don't know how I would have survived without the UConn men's basketball team getting there.
No, I don't either.
I had to have.
And now I have
interview clips.
And now I have a time headache because all the time is that was too much time for a small brain like mine to comprehend. But they made it in time for the media coverage, so they're good to go. All right, coming up next, Diesel and I are going to tell you who won, in our opinions, this NFL offseason. I have a list of who won and who lost. The Texans' deal today really impacts that. We talk a lot about winning and losing during the regular season, but coming up next, we talk about who won during the offseason. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. This is Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. And before we get into this next segment, I want to remind you that the Final Four coverage and the championship game coverage this weekend and this Monday, it lives here exclusively on the Fan Upstate. Final Four play-by-play coverage starting Saturday at 4 p.m. 97.1 Spartanburg, 97.7 Greenville, NC State Purdue on Saturday, Alabama UConn on Saturday as well. And then on Monday, you get Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson, just like we normally do every day, 3 to 7. And then after that, you can keep being a Tolo. And you can turn it on and leave it on because we're going to have the national championship game for you Monday night at 7:30, live play-by-play coverage exclusively on the Fan Upstate. So much looking forward to that. Great stuff from Bill Shanks in the last hour. We appreciate him taking time to hop on with us. As Diesel said, he is all over the state of Georgia, and he's on the radio the same hour as we are, so we had to pre-record him just a few minutes before we came on air today. Greatly appreciate his Braves insight. It is now time for us to tell you who we think did a really good job during free agency. Also, who we think did a crappy, terrible, piss-poor job during free agency. I have a list of the teams I think won and lost free agency, a lot of trades that also factor into the free agency talk, but there were a lot of teams that did a lot of there were a lot of teams that made a lot of moves during free agency. Then there were a lot of teams like my Dallas Cowboys who absolutely did nothing, Diesel, during free agency, which I'm very happy about.
Hey, you can't be a winner or a loser in free agency if you didn't do anything at all.
Well, you know what the Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones say? Oh, the Super Bowl's not won in March. That's what they say. The Super Bowls, I can't do the good Stephen Jones, but
well, you could also say that playoff games aren't won in Dallas.
No, they're not, or on the road. But they have some 2 or 3 signings, and then everybody else in the NFL signed like 50 guys. So we have all of the NFL teams, and there were teams who I thought really did a good job during free agency. And Diesel, as I go through these losers and winners, I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree, if you think I'm right or wrong. The texters, the Tolos out there, do the same thing as we go through these. 71307, just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. And then if you want to get in on the phone lines, they're open as well, 844-326-3663. We will get to the winners and the losers. And then if you also have a team, who's your favorite team, and you want our thoughts on how they fared in the offseason, we have it. I have every single team's moves, what they did, their transactions during free agency. Diesel, do you want to start with the winners or losers?
Winners always lead on this show. Winners
always
lead.
I like it. So my number one winner, and I would not have predicted this team, this franchise to be the winner, but I'm going to tell you the winner, why I think they're a winner, and then I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong. My number one winner in free agency is the Atlanta Falcons. That's right. I said it. The no good, sorry Atlanta Falcons, in my opinion, were the number one winner in free agency. They got stability at the quarterback position. They got rid of a quarterback who, and Desmond Ridder, really didn't show any flashes of being successful. They got a quarterback in Kirk Cousins for 4 years, $180 million, a big, big contract, but stability at the quarterback position. And Diesel, Kirk Cousins, whether you like him or not, he can win regular season games. They also got wide receiver Darnell Mooney. They signed him to a 3-year, $39 million contract. They added tackles and a couple of key guys on the offense and defensive line. Kentavious Street, wide receiver from Clemson, Ray McLeod. Does Kirk Cousins have the best weapons in Atlanta? No, but he does have a running back who is fresh out of the University of Texas, only been in the league 1 year in Bijan Robinson, who I think will be a good running mate for Kirk Cousins. So my number one winner in free agency, Diesel, Atlanta Falcons, you like it or no?
I do. Kirk Cousins is certainly not a guy who's going to go out there and probably win you a Super Bowl, not at his age, but
sure.
Kirk is a good stopgap he is a pro. He is a pro's pro. Like that dude
He
is the dude who can step into any team, into any locker room and be pretty good. Like he may win you a few more games than you expected, but Kirk Cousins is not going to lose you a lot of games. So I do like the move, especially compared to what they had at quarterback. That's a big upgrade. And even if it's just a year or two, it gives you time. So, I mean,
Sure.
The Atlanta Falcons, I'd have to look up and see.
Kirk Cousins, by the way, 35 years old.
Yeah, I'm going to look up here and see where do the Falcons draft in the first round. The Atlanta Falcons draft. Goodness gracious.
Should be pretty.
They draft
top 10, right? You would think. Unless they got rid of that pick, but for some reason I'm not.
They draft 8th.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The Atlanta Falcons have a good chance at getting one of these quarterbacks that we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday.
Or
it ain't going to be Spencer Rattler. Sorry, Gamecock fans.
No, but you're right. They could go with a quarterback,
If
or
that's
they
what
could
they
say, hey, we've got Kirk for 4 years. Let's try to. And this will be interesting to do the week leading up to the draft, Diesel. What piece could really put them over the edge? Because they're a good team with Kirk Cousins and Bijan Robinson. Yeah. He's one of the best, freshest running backs in the league. That's interesting.
And so if they are just blown away by one of these quarterbacks, they could go get a Bo Nix. They can get a Michael Penix. If they were so blown away with that guy, and then you could let him learn for a year or two under Kirk Cousins, and that would be a good situation. That would be a really good situation to walk into the league in. I don't know enough about the Falcons' overall roster needs to know if they would be willing to do that. I mean, especially after just signing Kirk Cousins, are they going to be willing to go after a quarterback? You'd have to look into the 2025 and 2026 drafts to see where, what they project the quarterback situation to be like in those drafts. Is it a now or never situation? I mean, what if you bring in a Michael Penix? What if you bring in a Bo Nix? What if you bring in any one of these guys that's available there at 8 and he just wows you? He just blows you away.
Sure.
Then you say, Kirk, we appreciate your 2 years of service here in Atlanta. We're going to ship you, on your way. I mean, go fleece some other team, go make a ton of money off of another team. We're gonna move on.
No, it's an interesting point, and I think in the division in the NFC South, Kirk Cousins now Diesel sits there thinking, man, I've got Derek Carr, no good, right? Is he still in New Orleans? Did they get rid of him?
As far as I know.
Okay, you've got Bryce Young, no good. You've got Baker Mayfield, who's not a bad quarterback, but Kirk Cousins has got to be sitting there feeling like, man, I have a good chance to be
the best quarterback in the division right now.
Probably so. So I have Minnesota.
We'll find out with Baker. Baker's been so up and down. I know there's going to be there's going to be a Buccaneers fan who's, what about Baker? Well,
sure.
Well, we don't know. Baker had one great season. Calm down.
I said Minnesota because Kirk Cousins and Minnesota goes still together in my brain. I have Atlanta as one of my winners. I also have the Baltimore Ravens as a winner, and I'm getting a text on the text line right now. Texter, just be patient. I'm coming to you. I promise. You'll like what I have to say. I see your text. So the second team.
Say my team first. You clearly are a hater.
I'm not a hater.
How dare you?
Another winner, Diesel. I think the Baltimore Ravens, as disappointed as I was with them in the playoffs, as disappointed as I was with Lamar Jackson not getting the job done, I still think Derrick Henry has something left in the tank. You re-sign Nelson Aguilar. You still have talent. You have Josh Johnson at quarterback backing up your franchise guy now. You re-signed him to a 1 year, just a $1 million deal. So you have a guy and a backup quarterback who's available. He was in the situation over in San Francisco a couple of years ago. As I said, defensive lineman Brent Urban re-signed. So all of your core pieces in Baltimore for Lamar Jackson are still there. And then I love the addition of Derrick Henry. So to me, Diesel, when you add Derrick Henry to the left or the right of Lamar Jackson, that could be deadly.
Well, they certainly now are going to have some money because they let a lot of guys go in free agency. And I'm going to look here and see where the Ravens are as far as cap space now, because they had 23 guys.
Should be on that picture I included on the run sheet. You should be able to look and see kind of where they are in terms of the rest of the league. But you're right, they did clear some cap space. I still think they're pretty far back in terms of cap space.
Well, okay, then they must have been really, really deep. So they're
Sure.
now up to $12 million in cap space, which is basically nothing.
Sure.
I mean, when you're comparing that to the Patriots, who have $47 million in cap space, the Commanders, 43. I mean, you get down to the middle of the pack basically in your cap space. So they don't really have a whole lot of money to spend right now.
Right. My next two winners before we get to the losers, as the texter pointed out, texter, I have the Houston Texans as a winner for signing Joe Mixon after they traded him from the Bengals. Now they have Joe Mixon. They have Stephon Gilmore. They still have tight end Dalton Schultz from my Dallas Cowboys. They re-signed the house. Eric Murray at safety. Mario Edwards, defensive end. Derek Barnett. They're stacked. Houston's stacked. They're going to be very, very good. So I have Houston as a winner. And then Diesel, this pains me to say. It really, really pains me to say this. But my last winner in free agency is the Philadelphia Eagles. I do like the addition of Saquon Barkley from New York, now being to the left or the right of Jalen Hurts. Just as I said with Derrick Henry, I think Saquon Barkley on a 3-year deal beside Jalen Hurts, as much as I hate to admit it, it's going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, I had a big problem with Tiki Barber and him going after Saquon for leaving. It's like, dude,
come on.
He doesn't owe you anything.
No.
He played a good chunk of years.
Tiki Barber needs to go to the AARP club. Come on. What are you doing?
It's like, he probably doesn't even know who Tiki Barber is.
Sure he don't.
Unless his photo is on the wall somewhere in the building. He probably don't even know who Tiki Barber is.
Right.
Yeah, if I'm Saquon Barkley, I don't give a rip what that guy has to say. Look, go find yourself a good situation. The Eagles are a good situation right now. They've got quarterback figured out. I know that Jalen Hurts' star fell off just a little bit this past season. It really was the 2022 season when he peaked. But, he's anytime a veteran player who still has something left in the tank can go to a situation where he's not asked to do it all.
Yeah.
That's when that's when I see they have the potential to break out and do big things.
Sure. I absolutely agree. So my winners, Atlanta, Baltimore, Houston, and Philadelphia are my winners in free agency. If you're a team of one of those four, I think you're going to have a very successful season. Unfortunately, Philadelphia getting better, Washington getting better, and the same division as my Dallas Cowboys. All right. Diesel, if you are a fan of these three teams, I hate it for you, but the three teams, the losers of free agency, in my opinion, based on what I look at, what I see, Carolina Panthers, number one. You let Brian Burns walk, and I think that you were already a bad team.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is going to
you're a bad team, and you let arguably your best defensive player,
right,
if not top two, walk, and you got basically nothing for him.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to work out well.
No, it's not. Now they got better at guard. They've gotten better on the offensive line, which is a building block.
Sure.
If you don't have a good offensive line, you're not going to be a very good football team offensively. Yeah. So I give the Panthers credit for the moves they made on the offensive line. I think where they're going to get majorly better is going to be in the draft at the receiver position. There's going to be some interesting playmakers available to them early there in the second round. They've got 2 picks early in the second round. So they could get better offensively there, but they will be a team that gives up a lot of points and a lot of yards.
Well, the problem is, Diesel, and you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at. The Carolina Panthers, they did sign a good many players. However, what I want to see when I see the guys that you signed this free agency season, are those guys going to be impact players when it matters? You've got Robert Hunt, Ashawn Robinson, Josie Jewell, Troy Hill, J.J. Jansen, Deontay Johnson, DJ Wanham, still question marks about what he'll be, Jordan Fuller, Tay Davis. Are you recognizing, Tolo's audience, are you recognizing any of these names? No, you're not. So while the Panthers have made some, quantity of signings, Diesel, I don't know that there's much quality there. So I have them as a loser because they let Burns go.
Well, if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you have to know that this is a multi-year process to rebuild. You're not going to get
multi.
Yeah, you're not going to get from where you were to where you want to be in one season. It's just not going to happen. It is disappointing what they gave up as far as what they were offered a year ago for Brian Burns and what they actually got for Brian Burns. Look,
yes,
the situation became untenable. Brian Burns didn't want to be there anymore, and they had to let him walk. Because if you franchise tag him, you keep him there for the season, you're going to get nothing for him. He's going to walk at the end of the year. He may not give you his best effort, so you may get half of Brian Burns and then still lose him anyway. So you had to take what you could get, even though the market value fell. You had to take what you could get. It's like having you're a starving man, and what's sitting in front of you is a big old turd sandwich, and all you can do is take a bite.
That is a good analogy, Diesel. A very, very good analogy. So, yeah, you can look up north and see Brian Burns as a giant, Carolina. 2 more losers on my list here. Minnesota Vikings. You lost Kirk Cousins. I do not think after losing Kirk Cousins, you did anything to really compensate for losing him. You signed Sam Darnold. Ooh, that's a sexy name, right? To a 1-year contract. Aaron Jones. I don't hate that. Good running back, 1,000-yard back. I get it. However, when I look at the rest of that offense is inconsistent as they were this past season, I just don't see anything there that shows me that you're going to be better next year. You were already pretty bad this year. Well, now you lost Kirk Cousins, and you going to replace him with Sam Darnold? I mean, you better have something up your sleeve if you're Minnesota.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there to be excited about.
Nothing.
If you're a Vikings fan, I mean, you gotta hope that you can do well in the draft.
Sure.
I mean, that's your best bet. I mean, Minnesota has the 11th pick. I mean, I would be shocked if Minnesota doesn't go quarterback if somebody they like is there.
No, I wouldn't. I would agree with that, especially if a Drake May or somebody's there at 11, right? All right, my last loser, Diesel. I am having to put my neck out there for this one. I'm not happy to say this, but my last loser in this year's NFL free agency are my dreadful, sorry, no good Dallas Cowboys. Who did they sign? Did they sign Derrick Henry, who said he wanted to play in Dallas? I mean, look, no. Did they sign, I don't know, Stephon Gilmore? Did they re-sign him? No, they didn't re-sign him. Okay, well, you needed some help at receiver. You also could have used some help in the secondary. Did you sign any guys in the any vets? Did you sign any guys that can help your secondary? What about linebackers? You were absolutely terrible at the linebacker position last year. Surely you signed a linebacker, right?
Any depth at receiver?
No. Linebacker, no. Eric Kendricks, oh, come on. 1-year deal. He's a rent-a player. I mean, I'm not really excited about that. You re-signed Rico Dowdle. Who are you going to hang your hat on? I mean, Derrick Henry would have really helped this team. Derrick Henry said that he would have signed there, right? He has a house in Dallas. But Jerry, Steven, and the gang don't believe in making free agency moves, apparently. They said they were going to be all in, but their definition from all in or of all in is a lot different than my definition of all in.
It's like they're playing fantasy mode in the newest Madden game on rookie mode. Like, they don't realize that you don't have to wait until the end of the calendar year to pick up players in the draft. Like, you can make moves throughout. It's like they've forgotten that element of the game exists. Trey Davis on the stream says Carolina signed 3 starters with the money they saved by not paying Brian Burns.
Wow.
All the starters have the capability of having a positive impact. Maybe. Like, look, Trey, I'm not really arguing with you that they
positive impact's different than
they needed bodies. And
sure.
We saw just how much movement there was on the offensive line for Carolina last year.
Yeah.
They needed bodies as much as they could get. Are any of those bodies difference makers? Well, compared to what you had last year, maybe, but that's a very low bar to set.
Right. And Madcraft says the Chargers are building a Jim Harbaugh staple, big-time running games, suffocating defense. He might be right there.
He's
You can.
also a fanboy.
Oh no, you didn't know? I didn't know that. He's a Chargers guy.
He's a Chargers fanboy.
Oh, okay. Now I know that. Now I am aware. You can text the show 71307. Brandon says, "Fly Eagles, fly! Big time win of the offseason." Thanks. Thanks for reminding me, Brandon. Another Tolo. Bro, the Texans won the free agency Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't disagree. They were in one of mine. Hope you heard it.
I don't know what your problem with that is, though. I have your voice on these airwaves saying that you will renounce your Cowboys fandom and become an Eagles fan if Dallas doesn't win the Super Bowl this year. We have your voice saying that.
My robotic voice saying
You just had a cold that day.
Oh,
that's all it was.
Pollen. It was the pollen.
Yeah, exactly.
Another Tolo.
Ragweed.
The green and gold will once again beat Kings of the NFC North, says a Tolo. Go Pack go. And then one question on the text line. I heard you mention Stephon Gilmore. Where did he sign? I don't think he has. I don't think Dallas is going to re-sign him. I heard a rumor a couple of days ago that Green Bay could sign him. I haven't heard anything come to fruition. I know there was talks between him and Carolina, which I think would be a good fit if he wants to retire there in Carolina. I just still have not heard. Another texter, Vikings still have one of the best receivers in the NFL. Yeah, but who's going to get him the ball? Sam Darnold? I mean, who else is – I'm having a really hard time sticking up for the Vikings here. Who else is in their quarterback room besides Sam Darnold? Christian Darrisaw.
Never heard of him.
Sam Darnold. Andrew DePolia.
Never heard of him.
So who's going to throw Justin Jefferson the football? I mean,
did they just open up a pack of Topps football cards and just pull out two random quarterbacks that nobody's ever heard of?
They must have
how those packs where you get maybe one card that you really wanted and the rest sucked.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
Their quarterback room right now.
Well, a lot of good stuff there. And Trey asking on the stream if we were going to do the AI voice segment again, said he really loved it. Yes, we will come back to it, Trey. We will give it a little while, though, because we got to keep you around, man. We got to, keep you chomping at the bits.
Speaking of keeping you chomping at the bits, you will be, of course, locked right here to the Fan Upstate, listening to our coverage of the Final Four and the national championship game. We have exclusive Final Four play-by-play coverage starting Saturday at 4:00. Game 1, NC State versus Purdue. Game 2, Alabama versus UConn. We'll have the national championship game for you Monday night at 7:30. The only place in the upstate that you're going to find the national championship and Final Four on the radio is right here on the Fan Upstate. Speaking of which, one of the teams that are going for a national championship just made a big-time move on campus that if they don't win is going to blow up right in their stupid faces. That's coming up next here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We are the Fan Upstate. me thinks this is a little bit of UConn calling Kobe before they hit the shot. And by God, if you're going to do that, you better make the shot. You better go out and win it all, because UConn, this is a post from the Boston Globe.
This is unreal.
UConn has removed all the light poles from campus ahead of the Final Four. Quote, the light posts are being temporarily removed from Fairfield Way, a path that cuts through the middle of campus, and being replaced with wall lights that, quote, provide the same amount of illumination without being vulnerable to being removed and misused, according to Stephanie Wrights, a UConn spokesperson. So
I have a lot of questions.
yeah. So we've all seen the footage of students celebrating, going nuts, doing a little damage on campus.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. Like the exuberance of youth, right? They got
Sure.
no other way to take out their energy. So what do? They run around on campus. They rip benches out of the ground. I guess at UConn, the thing to do is to take down light poles and start busting out windows. So UConn, ahead of the Final Four in both men's and women's, have decided we're going to take these light poles down. We're going to put up temporary lighting so that you hooligans can't rip the light poles out of the ground and bust windows with them.
First of all, how many light poles are they having to take down? Is my first question.
First of all, what are these light poles made out of? Because I mean, I'm imagining a standard light pole. Like we got them right out here. That would be hard
I
as
don't
hell
know.
to bring down, because that is the one we have here in the parking lot here at 25 Garlington Road at the Ingles Market Studios is sitting on about a 3-foot high concrete pedestal. It's bolted in with bolts, a solid inch in diameter. And the pole is a tall, skinny pole. But like, I don't know how you would bring that down other than like with a hacksaw.
So I found a picture online, the Boston Globe. I got half of a picture because before I see the whole picture, it wants me to subscribe.
Of course.
They don't look like they're bolted down with concrete or buried with concrete like these are.
Well, that seems like a security risk right there.
But my word, like still the whole thing of taking down a light pole, that seems a little much.
Like we know in West Virginia, their thing is when they win something, they go light couches on fire.
Yes.
Look out, all the dorm rooms all over campus, all the frat houses, you're going to have to buy new sofas. So I guess this is the thing. And they have a chance, obviously, to win 2. They're not going to tear it down because they win a women's national championship. Like,
you wouldn't think.
Things will be equal. Life will reach homeostasis when students are tearing down and destroying property on campus because you won a women's national championship. That's never happened in South Carolina. Nobody's out there, busting out car windows, celebrating
Diesel.
Another women's national championship. They're doing this for men's titles.
So that you're saying that the light poles at South Carolina are safe to stay?
Oh yeah, they're good. They're not going.
Diesel.
There's that saying. Like,
Come on.
act like you've been there before, right? Like, where are these UConn fans? They've won multiple titles.
My word, Diesel. Wow. I just found a video. I just found a video of students at UConn. 3 of them holding a light pole on their shoulder and ramming it through glass. Like this is borderline outrageously against the law. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're oh my word. Do they not have anything better to do?
It's January 6th in Storrs, Connecticut.
Where is that where it is? Connecticut?
Storrs?
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. There's not a damn.
I was going to say, what is there? There must be nothing to do.
Middle of nowhere. There's nothing in Connecticut. Hartford, get out of here. They don't even have a hockey team anymore.
So their best decision after doing this is, hey, let's tear these suckers down and ram them and destroy property.
Yeah.
So, that's great.
So UConn now, assuming that they're going to win or prepping for a national championship, are pre-removing the light poles. But my issue there is, what if you don't win it? What if you don't? And they've said in this post from the Boston Globe that these are temporary lighting solutions. So you are calling your shot. The campus is calling its shot that UConn will win a national championship because there's not enough maintenance men on campus or in town to run out there real quick.
No,
and take them all.
They're
down.
asleep.
So, I mean, like, why do they even have the light poles at all? Like, these aren't famous light poles. Just mount the lights on the sides of the buildings and just never touch it again.
Yeah, but they're pretty. They're nice looking, Diesel.
They're decorative.
They're decorative. They add to the ambiance of campus. But all kidding aside, you do have to take them down. And regardless of if you're calling your shot or not.
I mean, it's smart, but I think it's just silly to call your shot that way.
I don't even know that they're like, I hear what you're saying, but the way they may be thinking is, we don't care if we even win. We just don't want our freaking glass buildings destroyed if they do win.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to maybe blow up in your face and make you look stupid.
You would think so.
Yeah. Do we still have Delvin on the line?
We do have Delvin.
We do have Delvin on the line. He wants to talk winners and losers through NFL draft free agency to this point. Delvin, who's the biggest winner? Who's the biggest loser? What you got?
You basically have the same team for my winners, but on the losers, I kind of disagree. You said about Carolina Panthers. I'm not saying that it might be a loser, but you said because they lost Brian Burns, but you son, I got to give you just the same much production that he did last year, and DJ Wonnell and the guy and Davion Clowney gave you much production that he did last year too. So it's kind of like a push on that situation.
So you think, Delvin, that Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wonnum have the ceiling that Burns has?
Burns had 8 sacks last year. Clowney had 95, and DJ Wonnum had the same amount of sacks as
I'm saying ceiling, though. Ceiling in terms of.
But if they can give you the same production that he gave you last year, that they had that themselves had last year, that's about like a push right there.
There's a lot of debate whether or not Brian Burns kind of went soft last year, that he took some plays off, that he didn't go as hard as he wanted to. Maybe it was protest that he wasn't getting the deal that he wanted. I mean, his 2023 numbers were not great. 2022 numbers much better. It goes to show you that a happy NFL player plays harder for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Clowney's ceiling is Brian Burns' floor. I mean, all they had to do was pay him to keep him happy, but that's not what they decided to do.
I'm not saying they're not losing. I'm saying they lose, but I'm saying they're losing, but that's not one of my reasons to lose. I think they could have got a better receiver than Deontay Johnson. They could at least sign a couple more receivers.
No, I agree with that, Delvin. I don't think Deontay Johnson's much of an upgrade.
Yeah.
Delvin, thanks for the call, man.
Yeah. Y'all have a great time, man. I agree with you, man. Them people crazy in stores. Like stores in Bristol, that's why sports centers are the ESPN, because they don't got nothing to do, man. They just watch it all day.
Nothing to do but win championships and destroy property.
He said they watch it all day.
And watch it on ESPN, or they go to the studio and watch it there, because that's what they can do in Bristol. Hey, the people that work in Bristol, ESPN says ain't nothing to Bristol.
Hey, Delvin, have you ever been to Connecticut?
I haven't been to Connecticut, but they say ain't nothing to do other than Bristol. They say ain't nothing to do.
Delvin, you're born and bred in South Carolina, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, how do you think you would handle that kind of cold weather? Because I've had one opportunity in my life to go and live in like Minnesota, where it gets frigid ass cold, Hoth from Star Wars cold, but I don't know that I can handle it. I didn't go live there. I didn't really get to experience. 1 out of 10, Delvin, how able to weather that kind of weather would you be?
Man, I'll be trying to move, man. I'll move anywhere. Get down south. I'm staying down. I'm going from Connecticut on south. That's where I'm staying at, man. I ain't going up north, Connecticut or in Connecticut.
What area of South Carolina are you from, Delvin?
I'm from Fountain Inn, South Carolina.
Fountain Inn. Sweet, man. We appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Delvin.
Yeah, thanks for
Appreciate the phone call there. Hey, you got something to say about your team and its free agency? If we missed you, if we should have put you on the winners list, or if you think your team really crapped the bed, we'd love to hear about it. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. You could do like Delvin did. He had the cajones to actually pick up the phone and call us on the Renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone line, 844-326-3663. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the new proposal in college football that would see them completely revamp the whole system, take it out of Brian Petitti's and Greg Sankey's hands, restructure the whole thing, 80 teams in a division going for the national championship.
Before we hit a break, Diesel, real quickly on that. We talked about it a lot, but I didn't ask you on the college football expansion in terms of the super conference. Give me a percentage before we hit a break on likeliness, unlikeliness, if you will, in terms of you think there's a 60% chance for it to happen or 40% chance in terms of the super conference.
Oh, man. I'm going to say at this point, it's probably more like a 20% chance
Really?
of happening because you got to get a whole lot more institutional support behind it.
Yeah.
You got to get the two biggest and most influential figures in the game, Greg Sankey and Petiti, to sign off on this. I mean, if those two sign off on this, it's going to happen.
Sure.
Right. As of right now, you don't have either of those two guys. So I think it's a pretty low likelihood. But then again, we looked at the new betting rules that Charlie Baker put forth a week ago, and I would have said there's no way that 50 state governments are going to sign up for this. But we're seeing a whole bunch of states say, you know what, this is actually a good plan. We're going to outlaw this. We're going to stop prop betting on college athletes. And so I was shocked that has picked up its momentum. So maybe this could too.
It will be very interesting to see. And in 20, I think that's probably along the same lines I was thinking. Coming up next, we're going to run through the daily wires, take your thoughts on those daily wires. When we say daily wires on this program, they're headlines, but because this show is wire to wire, we call them daily wires. Your thoughts, text 71307. Also, the phone lines will be open one more segment before we call it a quits today. 844-326-3663.
Man, if you guys could hear that conversation, the very tail end, right before we came on the air. Maybe it's because he's a jerk.
Well, sometimes you
context
have
given.
to call it like it is,
Yeah.
Diesel.
We'll give no context as to who we're calling a jerk.
And maybe he will change his mind from being a jerk and want to come on the program.
I would ask you if you've seen Steve Martin's The Jerk, but I'm pretty sure you haven't.
I have not. Real quickly, though, before we get into this last segment, I do really appreciate, like, you and I hosting a show, when somebody does come on and take time to come on as an interview, I really do appreciate it. Like, I know we say it, we appreciate you coming on. It really does mean a lot to us because it's great content. However, some people just, like, I don't know if they have a vendetta or what it is, but, there's people I've reached out to in the past who just don't want to come on. And when you get to the upper tiers, they want to be paid. And I understand that. The Mark Slayers and Odyssey Insiders of the world, I get it. But you know what, man? Like, when I'm being asked to be interviewed, to me, it's an honor for them asking me.
They think I'm an expert.
Sure. So I don't know why people wouldn't. But for those that do on this station, man, we really appreciate it. We really do. We have some good ones.
Yeah, we do. We appreciate them so much. And that means more. It's like the best ability is availability.
Sure.
And they're available. And that really matters. I mean, we do our best to work around people. I mean, we had an interview earlier in the show from Bill Shanks. That dude had to go do a statewide radio show, and he took 15 minutes out of his day, 15 minutes before he went on the air.
That's right.
To talk to us.
And you know what? Just to pull the curtains back for people, because sometimes they like hearing, what goes on behind the scenes. I do, for the most part, try to text our guest afterwards and tell them thank you again. But like, for example, Bill Shanks today, Diesel, we pre-recorded him right before the show started. And he was about to go do a statewide syndicated show, and he took time to come on with us. So it does mean a lot. It really does. And we appreciate all of Don Staley just this couple of days ago. Like, man, we have had some really, really good guests, and we can hope to continue that. All right, Daily Wires to close the show, as well as your thoughts on these Daily Wires. I want to start at the bottom and work my way up, Diesel. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson says, hey, Kansas City, you can come home. Well, what does he mean by that? Well,
he's talking about the city. He's talking about the team.
The team. He's talking about the team. Originally, the Kansas City Chiefs in 1960, 61, and 62 were the Dallas Texans. So what does this have to do with the price of eggs, right? Well, there was a meeting the other day that was supposed to pass. However, that meeting on Tuesday night in Jackson County, Missouri, Diesel, did not get passed. It got struck down about a sales tax proposed that would help fund major renovations to Arrowhead Stadium, as well as a brand new ballpark to the Royal Stadium. Ooh. That's got to be a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Chiefs, who had committed $3,000, or let me back up. The Chiefs, who have committed $300 million in private money, they were hoping to get $800 million from the public funding to help support the new project. That'd be $11 million total they would need for this new renovations project. That doesn't include the money for the Kansas City Royals. Well, that didn't happen. It got shut down. We would not be willing to sign a lease for another 25 years without the financing to properly renovate and reimagine the stadium, Chiefs chairman Clark Hunt says on Tuesday. Now that voters have shot down the proposal for the Chiefs' future in Kansas City, it could legitimately, Diesel, be in question. Am I saying they'll move anytime soon? No, but their future could be in question if the city isn't going to help them.
So the Royals have one of the oldest ballparks in the stadium, not in the country, not certainly as old as Fenway or Wrigley. I mean, those stadiums are ancient. Fenway opened in 1912, for God's sakes. But the Kansas City Royals Stadium opened in 1973. So it's a 51-year-old ballpark.
Wow.
I've never been there, so I can't say, is it a sightline issue?
Right.
Is it a size of the concourse issue? Like they never expected to have crowds the size of what they've got there at Kauffman Stadium.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know the answer to that question, but we also have an idea in the back of our heads that things built in the 60s and the 70s are starting to crumble. They're getting a little crummy. They're getting a little old. The materials just weren't there. So, I mean, I understand why the Royals want a new stadium.
Sure. They probably deserve one. Just a few years removed from a World Series are the Royals. Well, Eric Johnson, the mayor of Dallas, uses this opportunity to voice his opinion. A homecoming for the NFL's newly crowned dynasty could be in order. Remember, as I said, they began in Dallas. They were the Dallas Texans in 1960 before moving to Kansas City. After Tuesday night's press conference, after the news got shut down, after the vote was vetoed, if you will, no way in you know what, Mayor Johnson said, "Welcome home, Dallas Texans," he tweeted out, and then continued his campaign Wednesday morning by saying Dallas was named to the top sports city in the United States because we played a win, Johnson said in a statement Wednesday to the Dallas Morning News. As I've said previously, our market's big enough, growing enough, and loves football more than any other market and could support a second NFL team. Diesel, I lived there for a year, just over a year. It would be really, really weird for Dallas to have two NFL franchises.
Yeah. If they moved, would they still be the Chiefs? Would you change that? I mean, I'm just trying to think.
Dallas Chiefs?
The Dallas Chiefs. I mean, they could. There's some, like, if they wanted to keep it a horse name, which is very popular.
Yeah.
Couldn't be the Broncos.
Stallions or something.
Couldn't be the Colts because there's already the Colts.
Sure.
If they wanted to keep it sort of Western theme is where I'm going with that.
Right. LA has two teams.
LA has two.
The Rams and the Chargers.
It's like, is Dallas really that full of itself that that the city feels like it needs two teams? You live there.
I think the city would
high on their own supply.
I think the city would welcome two teams. The city's it's enormous, man, and
that's putting them right up there with New York and
LA
is having two teams. I mean, would that be the race of the future to have multiple teams in your city? Is that like this? Is that the new status symbol? Is that the new Tesla in the driveway?
Could be.
Could Chicago go after having two teams?
Well, I'll tell you this: there's enough money for it to work in Dallas, and there's enough room. There's a ton of land in North Texas, so it could work.
So it wouldn't actually be in Dallas.
Well, here's just
outside Dallas.
It sure would, because for the Cowboys, for example, Dallas Cowboys, nothing they have is in Dallas. The headquarters where I worked out of is in Frisco. The stadium's in Arlington, 35, 40 minutes away. So nothing is in Dallas.
Which by Texas traffic, that's what, like 6 blocks?
7. But it is interesting. I mean, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but it is very, very interesting. It's intriguing. The Kansas City or the Dallas Chiefs. I don't know if I could buy that or not. I don't know, Diesel. And then the solar eclipse Monday, we will be doing a show. If you didn't know, there is a major eclipse happening. Diesel has his glasses on.
I'm ready. I'm going to put these on and not take them off until Monday.
I tell you what, I look forward to it, but I'm not sure what to expect. I'll be honest with you.
Barely see that light that's on directly over my head. What these glasses are for real.
They're dark, man.
Yeah, they are.
They cover it up. They really do. Should be a lot of fun,
though. Don't stare at the sun. It's not good for you.
Yeah. Should be a lot of fun, though. And Diesel, it's been a great show. We'll do it again tomorrow.
It has been. Looking forward to it. We'll have something exciting for you tomorrow on the show. Don't forget, we have coverage of the Final Four and the National Championship game right here on the Fan Upstate, your exclusive home for the Final Four and the National Championship game, right here on the Fan Upstate. Listen online on your smartphone with the free Odyssey app, 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg. We'll be back to do it all over again tomorrow at 3. Stream, thank you guys. Madcraft, Trey Davis, JD, Shane Barrett, everybody who's here. There's still 117 Tolos watching the show right now at the tail end, and that's fantastic. We appreciate you guys so much. We'll do it again tomorrow.